Okay. Hi, Andrea. I'm so glad you're with us tonight. Can I ask you to turn your video off until we call on you, and then you can make your big grand entrance.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got all of council back now? And are we live streaming? I'll just check with yes, we are live streaming. So hello, everyone, and welcome. First, I want to apologize for making you wait for us for 6 minutes. Terribly sorry. We had a special closed session council meeting that took a little longer than we had expected. So I do apologize for those who have been waiting for us to appear. And thank you all for being here and caring about your town enough to be here with us this evening. And I also want to thank all of staff who are here as well. Council, this is now we'll open the meeting for Wednesday, October the 28th, and I will let you know that we are audio and video recording and live streaming this meeting, and that all of that will form part of the public record, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. And for more information on that, you can get it from the clerk's office. Also asking those on the call with us, if you can remember to mute. I know sometimes it's hard to remember to mute and unmute, but we're getting much better at it since we've had about 8 months of practice so far. We are still planning on holding our all of our council meetings virtually for the time being, as advised by Dr. Gartner, our medical officer of health for our area. And I will also say that, fun fact, it was this week, 2 years ago, that the town of Innisfil residents entrusted us and elected us to form their next council. And I'm so proud of all of the work we have done over the last 2 years, even though we had to do that plus deal with a pandemic, which none of us had any notion that we would be involved in. So just wanted to take a moment to express that. And the first item that we have on our agenda is the open forum. And I would ask if there's any, we do not have anybody who is registered for open forum this evening. So I'll move on to the approval of the agenda. And we did have a couple of additions to the agenda tonight, 2 delegations. And so I would ask if we could have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended. Councillor Fowler and Councillor Orsatti. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next, is there disclosures of interest? Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, item C9 that was added to the agenda. I have a conflict on that, an indirect conflict, but my son is the contractor on that particular project.
Thank you very much. That will be duly noted in the minutes. Next are presentations and petitions. So our very first presentation, we're very happy to have our MPP, Andrea Kanjan, with us this evening, who's going to provide us with an update from the province. Welcome so much. Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Kanjan. I guess well, maybe I should be saying Mrs. Royal, but I want to thank you so much and congratulations. I'm going to embarrass you right off the bat and congratulate you on your recent wedding.
Thank you. Good icebreaker.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, wonderful. So I'll just bring up the PowerPoint presentation now. If you just bear with me. And hello, Council. Nice to see you again. It's been a while. I'm used to seeing all of you in person. So, all right. Wanted to provide you some quick update on my part and obviously try to leave some time for questions. So I might just plow through some of the slide deck here. And then of course we can always do follow-ups as always. So I'll go to the first slide. Wonderful. So obviously I wanted to talk about health first and foremost, considering we are still in a pandemic, and also wanted to congratulate the town council and all your work you've done on the Rosado Health Center. And my next slide will sort of build on a lot of the work you've done locally to make that happen. As we know, in the province, we had a lot of hallway healthcare. We inherited quite the issue, as you hear from Royal Victoria Hospital quite often, in terms of their ICU level, their alternate level of care patients. So to deal with that, there's been kind of a cross-provincial strategy that's been put in place, which is really going to help the residents of Innisfil quite a bit. For example, it's going to be having more of a digital footprint, for example, so people can actually access their records online. This is all, of course, voluntary. It's not mandatory, but it's just to make things much easier so that people have access to that, especially, you know, depending on how tech savvy you are, just a fast way to get service. And of course, a big thing that we wanted to start establishing is Ontario health teams. So locally, we're still working out our Ontario health team. It's in the works, it's coming. But that's going to be a big game changer for your residents and a lot of the people you represent and the folks that are watching tonight. And that's because we always talk about putting the patient at the center of care. Ontario health teams are going to help actually accomplish this so that you have a seamless transition. Say, for example, you're going to hospital, whether you're getting a surgery that was planned or not planned, when you get discharged from the hospital, often you fall through the cracks or you get lost. There's not a lot of follow-up, not a lot of instruction. The whole point of Ontario health teams is to make that as seamless as possible. So then when you're out of the hospital, you know, that PSW or that nurse is coming to your home, they're giving you the care that you need, you're getting the follow-ups, and you know what to expect. So that's the objective of that. I'll transition to the next slide. And of course, we can't talk about health without talking about mental health. And I know it's been such a center of focus for the town of Innisfil, especially what's going on with their young population as well, but it affects people of all ages. So as you heard, we did put in record historic number of funding into mental health, but that really translates on the ground here locally. For example, when I was at the Innisfil Rotary Club, we had a presentation about what's happening with the opioid crisis and how that affects us here locally. So we're focusing much of the mental health dollars as well on prevention. So that's going to help us here locally as well, because of course we want to prevent any of those issues from escalating. And I'll go to my next slide. Which brings me to, we just launched the Roadmap to Wellness. And the point of that is to complement the mental health investment. So essentially what it's doing is, things like our Mindability program, so more people can access different kind of cognitive behavioral therapy. It's proven to be #1 in terms of ways to help with mental health. And so a lot of the Mindability and a lot of the Roadmap to Wellness has been slightly tweaked to deal with COVID. So a lot of these services like Bounce Back are available online so that there's different access points for those mental health supports. Go to the next slide. And the whole point about that mental health strategy, before I go into the fall preparedness plan, is of course to deal with the whole, it happens in our police forces, it also happens in our school. So a lot of that strategy is, we're going into schools, we're helping youth, we're helping, officers on the front lines, we're helping nurses and who are in healthcare. All those mental health dollars are going to be advocated to different sectors versus just going into one pool, which leads me to, of course, mental health has been top of mind dealing with the pandemic. So if you didn't know already, many of the things we've sort of accelerated investments into things like surgeries. COVID-19, you might have heard from a lot of local residents, has impacted people's scheduled surgery dates. So lots of investments, about 283.7 million has been dedicated to deal with the surgical backlog. So if you were to go into RVH today, you would see that they're turning over patients over and over again. They're actually working longer shifts right now to deal with that capacity. And of course, that tails well with the fact that there's been a lot more investments into the flu shot this year. So if you haven't got your flu shot yet and you're watching this town hall, strongly encourage. Of course, the flu shot is not mandatory. It's your personal discretion, but we're getting that vaccine to all the different pharmacies. So definitely book ahead of time. There are going to be lineups this year because of obviously there's more awareness with the flu given with COVID-19. So if you do book ahead of time, you will be able to get in. And don't worry, we invested a lot into the flu vaccine, so you'll be able to get one. And that brings me to the fact that you cannot have, the next slide, of course, is if you If you do with COVID-19, if you are experiencing symptoms, there's been investments into local test locations. The biggest update on this one, everyone knew about where to get your testing, whether it's the Barrie Community Health Center or the RVH Testing Center, but it's pharmacies. So there are 2 pharmacies I'll highlight here in Barrie that are going to be doing testing, and I'm working to get pharmacies in Innisfil testing. So I wanted to highlight that strongly, especially given the location, one being in sort of the south end and then more of the north end of Barrie. But the fact that Innisfil locations will be coming online, so I will have more to say on that, but certainly pushing for that. The reason Innisfil wasn't rolled out for in terms of a pharmacy right away was just because they're based on where the cases are, and we're very fortunate in Innisfil that we didn't have a large amount of numbers, although we did see our first death, which is very tragic. I know your worship had acknowledged that as well, and everyone on council. But that's very important that rapid testing is going to be the game changer in all of this, which will take me to my next slide. So when we talk about, whether it's investments in healthcare, mental health, or flu vaccinations, or COVID-19, we have to think about the staff supports, of course, and addiction support. So as we've heard through this pandemic, as we did have personal support workers are on the front lines, they're doing a lot. We have them doing home care in Innisfil. We have them working at Lakeview Retirement Home. And so this investment was, of course, to not only increase their pay, but also to increase the retention of PSWs, because we do currently have a shortage in this province. So that's just to recognize them. So the personal support workers in our area can count on that additional funding. We'll go to the next slide, which bridges me into long-term care. And with long-term care, you might have heard me say this before, especially when I'm at the wheel, is of course there's a commitment to building 20,000 new long-term care beds. So, sorry, there's 20,000 beds total, but of that 20,000, their goal is to build 8,000 new beds and 12,000 redeveloped beds. This is of note just because it'll be a bit of a game changer for Tollendale too, which I'll talk about later. The fact that they do have the capacity to house more long-term care beds, which is going to be big for our community, because right now, I don't know about the calls you get, but there's a lot of obviously leaning on a lot of the Simcoe County services in order for people to find their loved one a bed within Innisfil. So there's definitely a huge need there. So they're looking to a lot of communities around them. So part of this long-term care, building more long-term care bed strategy will obviously encompass our growing communities, which I would say really includes Innisfil. Next slide. And so I touched upon it, but you can't have long-term care beds without a staffing strategy. So that's going to be very key in terms of we've invested, Georgian College, which is not too far from us, is they're going to be offering a nursing degree now so that we have a better retention of nurses here locally. What would happen before is they used to be able to go to York University to get the last few years of their degree. And because they're leaving Simcoe County and in our greater community, they wouldn't necessarily come back. So the fact that we have a college that's very close to Innisfil, that's being able to deliver a nursing degree will help us with nurse retention in our community, especially given, we'll have a hospital in the horizon, I should say. And of course, that was going to help with the PSW shortage as well for our, for people who are having home care right now within Innisfil and at Lakeside Retirement Home as well. Next slide. And so, of course, when you talk about capacity, staff training, et cetera, you can't help but acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is COVID-19. So I just wanted to highlight that $243 million has been dedicated to surge capacity of things like our Royal Victoria Hospital yesterday. They got additional funding for their surge capacity, staffing, screening that they can do, and of course there's more supplies, and this is recent funding. Next slide. Education, a lot of great developing news here. Of course, childcare is going to be, as our community grows in Innisfil, childcare is going to be, we're going to need more spaces. So there's provincial dedicated funds, $1 billion over 5 years to create more spaces. And of course, there'll be grants awarded as well for to increase the wages for those workers by $2 an hour. And that leads me to, some people choose childcare facilities, but others choose to have access to home care. And so we did a lot of changes there to build up the capacity. So more people, I know in Innisfil especially, there's a lot of individuals that are providing childcare from their house. And so this is going to be able to allow them to have more children at their home by breaking down some of those regulatory barriers. And can't talk about, childcare without talking about our schools and how our students get there. So another key component in Innisfil specifically, because of a lot of our students are busing to schools, we need to think about the future and the fact that we do have a bus driver shortage. That will affect us here locally, especially since some of the routes are already quite long. And I know one specifically, I've talked to a lot of parents, has been extended. So a lot of our students are spending a lot of time on the bus. But a lot of that is because we don't have enough bus drivers. And so for us to get better routes, for students to be spending less time on the bus, but still being able to get from their home, the door in their home to the door in their school, retention program is going to be key. So there was originally a $40 million investment, but with COVID-19, we expanded that investment and added a $44.5 million to that. And of course, you'll note there's also investments that were done for route protection, which just basically means certainty for those bus drivers so they know they have a guaranteed route. Next slide. And so I talked about this earlier, but mental health in our schools is vital, especially now, considering a lot of our students have a pandemic to deal with. So it is going to be a change in the Ontario curriculum, as well as funding is going directly to schools to hire psychologists and health professionals to help students really inside the schools when they need it most. So that's a $40 million investment there that will be rolling out last year and this coming year as well. Next slide. Okay, and so of course, part of the mental health situation we have is children that are being bullied in school. This is an issue that I tackled on directly, spoke to a lot of parents, had a roundtable with one of our special advisors who happened to have an education background, Christina Midas, also an MPP. And a lot of part of the mental health issues is we have a lot of newcomers in our area where English is not their first language. So a lot of our students are being bullied because of their accent. Which is totally unacceptable. So there is, of course, as part of the bullying strategy, there's been a lot of training of educators of how to de-escalate certain behavior within the classroom, and of course, actually defining bullying within policy statements. Next. And obviously big news with growing community. We need to build more schools for those students and for that population. So what you'll see as we announced it probably a month ago is the new school in Lefroy. This is something I've been pushing for with the Ministry of Education for quite some time, given our growth numbers and our community, and especially how much time our students are spending on the bus. So I heard loud and clear from parents. I know a lot of you I spoke to at the door, if not at events, is that the amount of time students spend on a bus. So this will definitely help by building a new school, which will also include 3 new classrooms for childcare. So that will help with the childcare capacity. In addition to building the new school, there's also been money allotted to expanding and renovating the Lake Simcoe Public School. So that means the Lake Simcoe Public School is going to get 190 new elementary student spaces. And of course, that will, because we're renovating the school, there are also going to be 2 new childcare rooms, and there'll be 39 new licensed childcare spaces there. Next slide. So, the investments I talked about, those 2 are the most recent, but there's ones that have been happening, whether it's throughout COVID-19 or throughout this year. I talked about mental health supports, but this is a breakdown of the exact dollar figures, both for Simcoe County District School Board and of course the Catholic Board as well. And I bolded there just to bring your attention to it is of course the funding for mental health. It's considering what's happening with many of our students and the suicides that are all aware of. And of course, the transportation needs, because we're a community of communities and we have to get our students from A to B. That's going to be very vital. But there's other supports there specifically for COVID-19, like cleaning, being able to space out the classes, the desks, virtual learning, etc. But they're just all there. But I'll go to the next slide. one thing I will mention on the previous slide is ventilation. That's going to be key. So a lot of our, in Simcoe County, we're actually lucky. We're one of the districts that have the most amount of schools with air conditioning. That's why a lot of teachers actually choose to come to our county. But not all schools are fully renovated. So you'll see that previous slide, there was money dedicated to upgrading HVAC and making sure that our students have clean air to breathe, which is key for getting through this pandemic in a safe manner in our classrooms. And of course, environment. Everyone on this call knows how important that is, whether you're the mayor who's on the Source Water Protection Committee or the deputy mayor who, of course, has done a lot for Lake Simcoe, or if you're other, I know Mike Walter, you're here too as well. All your work with the conservation, of being one of the members of the Conservation Authority. So I'll bring you to the next slide in terms of things that you've probably heard about, but we announced, of course, the Day in Action on Litter in Innisfil Beach Park, a very famous park. And I thank all of you for who attended that announcement. And of course, that really complements what you've all been doing for ages, which is your Pitch-In Day. So really inspired by what you did with that. And we're taking it province-wide to help keep our environment clean, which brings me to my next slide. One of the treasures we all have is Lake Simcoe here in Innisfil, which is why a lot of people choose to come live here and enjoy our lake. In the Maiden Environment Plan, Lake Simcoe is actually mentioned countless times, but if I had to count, as you see there, it's 5 times to stress the utter importance of our plan. And it's because it's definitely a lake that there's been a lot of investments made to it, and we don't want to lose those investments. A few months ago, I did announce additional funding, $581,000 to 5 different projects that are going to be taking place. 4 different projects, I believe. And so some of those are being done through the Conservation Authority. The others are being done from the Great Lawrence Institute. So those are going to be key in terms of understanding the other tributaries to the lake. What we've seen this year with Lake Simcoe is that oxidation levels have gone up, which is really good for our cold water fishery. But of course, as any report, there's always more work to do. And this year we'll launch the 10-year review of the Lake Simcoe Protection Act. So I do call on all of you to keep an eye out and and participate in that. You'll get formal invitations through myself and the environment folks as we get through the consultation. Is going to be very comprehensive. Given COVID-19, a lot of it will happen online, but we want to make sure we include our seasonal residents and long-term residents and people with a lot of history around the lake as well. Next slide. And that leads me to another part of the environment is the Blue Box program. Thank you to everyone on council who's contributed to your feedback on this. I know your worship specifically, we've done many consultations and MOU meetings with you in your capacity at AMO as well. This change to the Blue Box program, which means producers are going to be responsible for the cost of it, is actually going to save Simcoe County about $3.6 million annually. Substantial savings, and of course Innisfil is going to play a big part of that. And the best part of this is local residents will not see a change in their Blue Box program. So when they go to the curbside, the collection, none of that will be disrupted. And Innisfil will be transitioning by 2024. So it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. So no fear for those of you who have carbon collection tomorrow. I will be a smooth transition by 2024. Next slide. Transportation. So of course, environment, I'm the parliament is into the environment. So I do a lot of work there, but you can't, you always have to think about how people are getting from A to B, whether it's investing in GO Train, so less people are getting in the car and they're going on public transit. So investments have been made to our South GO Train station in Barrie, because obviously we're still waiting for the one at Innisfil to be built, which is also on the horizon. Very exciting. But to deal with the amount of demand that's happening from both Innisfil and Barrie for the GO Train station, I managed to announce additional parking spots, because parking is obviously key to be able to drive to a transit point and then take the train. So we added some parking spots to that GO Train station. We've also been flexible with the times, because obviously even with COVID-19, we did tweak the times of the GO Train to accommodate people's work schedule for those who did get approval to return to work and not work from home. So very cognizant of that. And I encourage anyone who's listening to the town hall today, if you have other suggestions, please do email me about that. Of course, part of transportation is our highways and our bridges. So of course, the bridge that was announced many summers ago now, that's what it feels like, was over Highway 89 bridge, over 400. Very important to get to the car in terms of getting to the ramp and getting it on and off the highway, very key. And a component of that, of course, is the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. So that's really key for me to ensure that you as a town council and the residents of Innisfil continuously get as much as they can in terms of the grant. So you'll just see over time how much that grant has increased, and I'll continue pushing for that. The number did increase in 2019. It's dipped a little bit in 2020, but we'll hopefully get more dollars in 2021, 2022. And of course, everyone's top of mind, the Innisfil Creek Drain. I feel like we talk about this a lot. I'm still advocating for a full solution. I know we were able to get MTO to a partial solution. And so, of course, we're working with transportation to continue that and all the landowners who are, of course, affected by that creek. Next slide. Of course, very familiar to everyone, gas tax funding, very key for Innisfil, and we're very lucky that Uber does qualify for gas tax funding. So those are just increased in dollars from 2018 to 2019. We were able to secure, and because of COVID-19, we also gave as a province additional funding to protect the transit workers. And so what I talked to a lot of our Uber drivers, they're still doing pickups, they're trying to do them safely, but one thing they did tell me was they did need some more investments in clean wipes and sanitizer, because for them, that's sometimes their supplementary income, but they don't want to spend all of their supplemental income on actually buying all the cleaning equipment for their Uber. So that was, of course, important to advocate that they still get that funding as well. So it's not just for buses and what most people think about transit, but our creative ways of transit in Innisfil as well, so that those dollars are sent to those drivers. Next slide. And of course, for our growing housing needs and municipal affair needs. Next slide. So this is not news to anyone, but of course you're doing Town of Innisfil got received close to $677,000 for the modernization fund. So that's going to go, of course, to your project that you're doing between South Simcoe Police and the fire station. So it's very exciting. I was happy to contribute to that at the provincial level. And of course, as you know, and this picture captures it, I will always be there at the table to advocate for the town of Innisfil with all the great councillors in this meeting, and of course our mayor and deputy mayor for your priorities, and ensure those dollars and those priorities come to fruition. Next slide. And one of those, of course, talking about, dreams and projects coming to fruition. Town of Innisfil had a big meeting with a lot of seniors who came and explicitly said they need a Tollendale Village too, and advocated for clearing of some red tape, where it took over 7 years to get Tollendale Village off the ground. So I want to thank, of course, the town council for the role you played in getting this together. I think it was clear that it took all of us to make Tollendale Village to a reality, both the County of Simcoe and all the councillors here. So that's going to be key to obviously building more retirement residence for our community, and of course the long-term care beds that might come with that after the original construction of the seniors home itself. Which complements my next slide, which is I took a keen interest into the life lease model. It provides affordability for seniors. So I took on a policy hat that wasn't really mine to begin with, but I worked with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and his staff on developing a new life lease guide. It was key for me because I recognize that a lot of seniors get into this model and they don't realize what they're getting into. And so that educational piece and knowing the rights that you have as a senior when you're getting into a life lease was so key. So we definitely made a lot of tweaks to that guide, changed some of the regulations that come with it, and of course launched that at Tollendale Village. And so when we get the Tollendale Village 2, which will be very complementary to Innisfil, this guide will be a game changer just because of the seniors who are looking to move into Tollendale Village 2. That is the model they use. They do use a life lease housing model. So that way they know what to get into. So if anyone's watching this call and that's what they're looking to get in, I encourage you to look out for this guide. It's available online. If you need printed copies, contact my office. We'll certainly print off some copies for you as well. Next slide. And of course, talking about healthcare and, some of the services we have, this is just a snapshot of the land ambulance grant that was provided to the County of Simcoe, which of course impacts the town of Innisfil. And that actually, the investments that delivered on a provincial level for the land ambulance grant has increased from 2017 to 2020. So substantial, just trying to fight for those dollars, and to, obviously, as your representative in your PP, trying to work for you to get as much support and funding as we can, especially when it comes to our healthcare system. And of course, our ambulance drivers and paramedics play a key role in that. Another key part of that, of course, is accessibility. There's been a lot of investments provincially in terms of accessibility. I'll run through these slides quite quickly because I want to get to some of the more of the meaty issues, but accessibility is really key in terms of our senior strategy. And so every year I was going to have a seniors expo. Then COVID-19 happened, so I've had one. But I encourage, if you have any questions in terms of accessibility funding or anything available to you, to contact my office. We're constantly trying to fight not only for our seniors, but of course, accessibility dollars, which brings me to my next slide. And of course, when it comes to senior support, accessibility, mental health are all very key. The dental program for low-income seniors has been a game changer for us locally. I've been printing off lots of applications for our seniors and delivering them to their door in various pockets of Innisfil. And so there's a lot of people who've had success with this program, a few that didn't quite qualify, and I've taken that feedback back so we can tweak this program slightly to raise the qualification threshold. But I've seen it's definitely working, which is great to see. And of course, we have to take into account the mental health of our seniors, the impact that isolation has on them. And that was even before COVID-19. Now even more so, it's important. So you saw that there was a $250,000 investment directed to seniors alone. When it comes to mental health. And of course, an important tool for that, and we've seen this when South Simcoe Police sends out their news release, but in order to find missing seniors, there was funding given to our local Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County, something I announced with my counterpart, Doug Downey, also an MPP. And so that was that's going to, obviously, those funds help our seniors who are lost in Innisfil as well. And so that helps the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County through their programming and their alert system in order to help seniors who may have wandered off, and of course make sure that they return home safely. And that's constantly being redeveloped, and those dollars are reassessed every year. So we announced the funding last summer, and there'll be, of course, more funding when that fiscal envelope is closed. And so accessibility, of course, I know everyone here is working on some of those ramps that you're installing. I live close to one of them, so it's great to see that project moving. But of course, across Ontario, you've got the Ontario with Disabilities Act, very important. So we are investing in helping municipalities and helping our local businesses reach those compliance targets, which brings me to my next slide. So if you have any questions in terms of what the Act requires, do reach out. But we have done some investments in terms of places that does need improvement, like our schools. So there was funding provided, about $1.4 billion in funding to allow for schools to upgrade their accessibility frameworks within their schools, or any ramps or any things they need. A big part of that was also to allow for service animals into our schools. This wasn't something we had across the board in all district school boards. And so it was a bit of a game changer for the coping mechanisms that students use their service dogs for, to allow them into schools. Next slide. So of course, in terms of funding as well, that was accessibility prior to COVID-19, but now with COVID-19, there's been additional funding put into our retirement homes to ensure that they have infectious control and screening dollars, and of course that they have the necessary screening procedures put in place as well. So $5 million was given to that. And of course, $20 million for infectious control and active screening procedures. And part of that, of course, is to get a lot of the social service supports. And so Meals on Wheels was also given an investment of $11 million, so that we know that people are getting the food they need delivered because they may not be able to leave their home. whether they're immune compromised or they're unable to access points in their community. So that goes in, it gives them the ability to deliver food to their door. And of course, different financial assistance that's available. One big part of our Ontario Action Plan response to COVID-19 that was done back in March, also known as a mini budget, was the guaranteed annual income system, the GIS. It was increased for seniors. And so if you know anyone who didn't get an increase, my office can certainly look into that. But that was something that was supposed to be automatically shown up on your supplement that you get every month. Next slide. And of course, bridging off of our seniors, Sparks Ontario and 2-on-1. I know many on council here have, of course, advocated for this program. And so we've sort of enhanced it with Sparks Ontario and 2-on-1 by investing $100,000 into the program. And basically that just allows for the platform to function contagiously, and we have people that it helps them connect with volunteers. So if you know anyone who's looking to volunteer, or you yourself are watching tonight and you're looking to contribute your time and effort, please do visit that website, sparksontario.ca, sign up to be volunteer, or sign up if you need someone to help you, with things like delivering groceries or to do any errands that are needed if you can't leave your home. Next slide. Of course, you can't forget our agricultural sector, people that feed us every Thanksgiving and throughout the year. Next slide. So we did a few announcements. One thing in terms of rural affairs and agriculture is our local OSC received funding for a new app. I work with them quite a bit. I know a lot of recreational snowmobilers in Innisfil, and they wouldn't let this one slide. I heard loud and clear they wanted a really effective app. It actually keeps their snowmobilers safe because they're able to access it at any point. They can meet up with each other. They could also check out the status of their trail. So going into the winter and all those snowmobiles in Innisfil, I heard you, and the grant has been awarded to our folks at the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs. So look out for those. Next slide. In terms of funding for agriculture, we did an event with our very own Innisfil Creek Honey, Brian Scott. We had the Minister of Agriculture do an announcement where the e-business stream in Innisfil got $40,000. And again, it's to make things more digital, which was really great to see. And 3 projects are approved under the Honey Bee Health Management Program were awarded in Innisfil as well, which was about over $5,000 that we received locally. And a lot of a big part of that announcement, of course, was to improve the health of our bees. We can't have honey without the good management of bees. So anything related to the disease and stressors of bees, money was invested in terms of helping improve that habitat for those bees. Next slide. And a few programs I want to highlight. So some of these, in terms of if you're watching and you're looking for agricultural funding supports, a few of these streams are still open. Some of them are annual, so you'd have to apply under the next time it's open. But keep looking out on the ontario.ca agri-foods jobs portal. We're constantly looking for, obviously, people in the agricultural sector in terms of people who are looking to hire. So if you're looking for a job within the agri-food sector, that's your point of contact there. If you're an employer that's looking to hire people, it's a portal for you to advertise jobs. And of course, there's the e-business portal, which complements a lot of the work that the town of Innisfil was doing with their challenge they had during COVID-19, when people had to create an app. And during that process, a lot of people created apps to do with agriculture. Well, you see with the e-business stream, that's going to certainly help a lot of those farmers markets develop an online retail business. And of course, the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, which is an annual fund. But due to COVID-19, we'd fought for $10 million to be awarded to deal with some of the emergency issues we had within the agricultural supply chain. Next slide. And those are just a few more programs. I'm just conscientious of time. So I'll just wrap through the heritage and tourism and culture stream. It's different this year without having our Rib Fest, but some of the dollars that were awarded locally in Innisfil was to the Ontario Olympic Trap Shooting Association, which is an incredible facility if you haven't been there yet. But they were They got some $18,000 from the provincial government. And of course, Ontario's Sport, Recreation and Communities Fund that was also awarded to the town of Innisfil to help them with to help you with your cultural and sports funding. One I did want to highlight that's new is the Resilient Community Fund. It is coming up for deadline September 2nd if anyone wants to access it, but there'll be a second round which will be due December 2nd. And so the purpose of the Resilient Community Fund is it's a grant up to $150,000 to help eligible non-for-profit organizations rebuild and recover from the impacts of COVID-19. And you can apply for things like you're helping with, you need help with like your staffing, things like supplies. And so of course you can go to this fund, apply for if you're trying to do a COVID-friendly event. I know there's a few people that are trying to brainstorm what are we going to do to get through Christmas. And certainly if you need funding to help you plan that event, do look out for that fund and certainly email me if you need the link. I don't have it up here quite yet, but it is called the Resilient Community Fund. Next slide. I also note that one of the grants we awarded this year provincially was to Ducks Unlimited. We did that announcement at the town of Innisfil with your worship, Mayor Dolan. And so that's reflected there in terms of their flood mitigation and phosphorus studies they did. Supporting law and order, I'll go through this one in terms of what South Simcoe Police can look forward to. A lot of supports have been given at the provincial level to victim supports, something we've heard from a lot of our police officers. I know I heard about it when I did my ride along with South Simcoe Police, but also the ability to, of course, focus on victim services. So you see it there. And of course, the extra funds we have for our children and youth, being able to support a lot of those agencies that work with our youth to help them out. Next slide. And that, in addition to that, we did the Smarter and Stronger Justice Act, which will, of course, help our police services basically streamline the adequate justice system that they often had to deal with. So that's going to make the justice system more affordable and accessible for a lot of our residents. And of course, a big complaint that I used to get a lot from folks in Innisfil was the prompt payment regime. And so that's changed quite a bit. So a lot of that has just made it a lot easier for businesses and workers to be able to deal with the prompt payment problem. Next slide. Of course, cannabis, just if you're hearing about it, I'm not getting as many calls in my office about this, but I don't know if local councillors might have been, but there is definitely, in terms of the legalization implementation fund, a lot of dollars have been given to, say, the town of Innisfil and to county of Simcoe. A lot of that, of course, is to help establish the buffer zones between our schools, because one thing that we kind of put our foot down at the provincial level was that should never be any sort of retail cannabis store at all by our schools, period. That is not the place. We're already struggling and battling with the amount of vaping happening in our schools, and funds have been given to that. But just so you know, there will be heavy enforcement for those who do not have legal access to cannabis. So that's people that are underage, and of course that will the funds will have been given to make sure that that is actually implemented. Next slide. And of course, I want to thank the town of Innisfil for also adopting the definition of anti-Semitism. Thank you all for your support. We just passed that at the provincial level as well. And the reason that that's topical is because there was investment made to our police forces that they can access and apply for, which is 1.6 million over 2 years. They can access this anti-racism and anti-hate grant, which is available for their application, so that we can fight any sources of hate in our community. Next slide. Which of course, and then those are funds. That was a change that was made prior to going to COVID-19, but was still on the books. In terms of direct COVID-19 supports, emergency funds were given to victims of domestic abuse. I think all of us can understand that there's a lot of people that are now stuck at home that otherwise would be able to leave an abusive relationship, and certainly very cognizant of that. It's quite scary, actually. And so I'm very keen to provide extra funds and supports to help those victims of domestic dispute. And of course, there was also one-time emergency payment to help more than 50 communities across our province, which tail ends with the support that we will need in different things like technology. So you'll see there's 1.3 million in funding for technology like laptops, doubling devices in court use. And the help with that is victims, so that they only have to tell their story once. If you have more digital recording within the courtroom system, you don't have people have to retell their story, which makes them basically, you know, as a victim, to re-traumatize them over and over again. Next slide. Economic development, we'll keep going. So a lot of, in terms of investing in job prospects and investments to make sure we've got a booming economy. A lot of these affect our region, specifically, you know, whether it's the folks in Innisfil that work at Honda or places like Innovation Automation or MPC. A lot of these funds were given to that. Once we complete the plans for the employment lands, which I'll leave to council, these funds you'll be able to tap into to bring a lot of more industry and manufacturing into the town. But right now there's a lot of folks that tapped into this funding around our area. And I've heard it's been great for local residents because it means that they have a job to go to at the end of the day. Next slide. So this brings me to all the individuals that are manufacturing. A lot of our companies in our area have retooled to provide personal protective equipment. And that's why we launched the Ontario Made campaign. So if you're looking for any sort of supports, or your manufacturer that's looking to retool, we've invested $500,000 to the Ontario Together Fund. And through that fund, there's been another launch of the support OntarioMade.ca website. So basically, if you are looking to supply a product or you're looking to buy a product, you can go there. So if there's any suppliers or businesses right now that are looking to provide those products, certainly you can go to that website and be part of the supply chain or be a user of that supply chain. A huge program was, of course, Digital Main Street. And I know, given the direction the council's taking with all of its out-of-the-box thinking, is taking your bricks and mortar store. So anyone who's normally used to going to, say, the Lions Club or the Innisfil Library to sell your products, and now you don't have access to those forums necessarily, or you have a smaller market, you can now access a digital tool that will help you create basically an online store to take your bricks and mortar setup and make it digital. And so that's what the Digital Mainstream is about. The town can also apply into that fund. There's been other municipalities have also utilized it through their BIA system. So, you know, individuals like Startups South Simcoe, I know, are looking at this, and various other business groups. Next slide. Energy prices is going to affect everyone's business. So just a heads up for everyone watching, November 1st, you will be able to choose between time of use or a flat rate pricing. So keep an eye on that. There was a price reduction done during COVID-19, and we're keeping energy levels stable. If we didn't intervene at all as a provincial government, our energy rates shockingly would have gone up by about 30%. In that average ballpark. So that's quite scary if you think about I know a lot of people who are struggling to pay their bills, trying our best to keep those energy bills moderate as possible. But yeah, those investments had been made, just so you're aware. And of course, you're not going to see a decrease on your bill, but if nothing was done, it would have been a dramatic increase of 30%. So the decrease you're seeing is 33.2 reduction, as you see there on the slide. All right, and that's a wrap up. I know there's a lot of content to carry to go over there, but just tried to summarize it as quick as I could and leave time for any questions if there's any.
Thank you so much, MPP Kanjan. There's no grass growing under your feet, I can say that for sure. So thank you so much for that update and for being here with us. And I would entertain questions from members of council. Seeing none, I wanted to just say thank you for a couple of things. As you indicated in one of your pictures, it made me chuckle a little bit about you diving into policy, because once a policy person, always a policy person, even when you're wearing another hat. I also wanted to thank you. You know, I've been going to delegation meetings with ministers for years, and you are the first MPP that's ever attended and supported things like the employment land expansion that you helped us support. We thank you very much for that. And I was recently, last week, listening to the daily Premier's briefing. And I think it was PA Surma, who's been to Innisfil to help with the work on the Innisfil Creek drain, announced, she was talking about the new transit-oriented act and legislation, and she pointed out two municipalities who were, you know, beautiful examples, and it was Durham Region and the town of Innisfil. So I almost drove off the road when I was listening to it in the car. So it was very nice to get that shout out as a shining example of good work we're doing here. So I thank you very much for being here, and I'll ask one more time if any member of council has anything. Seeing none, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder that the update be received. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Fowler, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you again, MPP Kanjan, really appreciate it.
Thanks everyone, all the best. Bye.
Thank you. So next on our list of presentations is Jessica Jenkins, the Capital Engineering Lead, along with Meredith Goodwin, Capital Project Manager, and they're going to give us a park update. Or actually, it's the BMX pump track. We've had a lot of questions about what a pump track is, so I guess we're going to find out. Welcome, ladies.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. I'm Meredith Goodwin, Capital Projects Manager, and presenting with me today is Jessica Jenkins, our Capital Team Leader. Through this presentation, we are going to discuss the proposed Innisfil Beach Park projects. This presentation is related to Council Report DSR 17020 that is on agenda today. At the June 24th, 2020 Council meeting, through Staff Report DSR 09720, Council approved the Innisfil Beach Park Master Plan Vision 2020. Next slide. The majority of the projects outlined in the Innisfil Beach Park Master Plan Vision 2020 require field investigations and background studies, which will be completed through an implementation plan. The implementation plan will complete a detailed review of the parks projects included in the master plan and investigate into potential environmental impacts, cultural impacts, heritage impacts, traffic impacts, and impacts on existing park amenities. It will also include geotechnical studies, utility requirements, project costs and scheduling estimates, project phasing with a detailed plan of which projects are to occur in which order. The implementation plan is scheduled to be completed at the end of 2021. Next slide. Although there are significant benefits in completing the Innisfil Beach Park implementation plan, there is also anticipation from the community to see interim, smaller, and beneficial park improvement projects starting sooner than 2022. Sorry. Staff reviewed the immediate projects. Sorry about that. Staff reviewed the immediate projects in the Innisfil Beach Park Master Plan 2020 that would require minimum background work, results in limited disruption to the park, add amenities identified as existing gaps, target key user groups that are currently underserviced, and help provide supporting infrastructure for community building and mental and physical health and wellness through the pandemic. Two projects were identified that meet this criteria, the BMX pump track and the outdoor fitness equipment projects. So on to the fun stuff.
Next slide, please. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly is a pump track? We have a quick video to demonstrate an example of the type of pump track we would be looking to install at Innisfil Beach Park. Next slide, please. And if clerks could play the video.
Cue cool music.
Thank you. Apologies if the video was a bit choppy and that we lost the sound there, but there was just some, as Meredith mentioned, some cool background music to go with the visuals. So on to the next slide, please.
I could have sang, but that would have been awkward, I think.
As you saw in the video, a pump track is a course containing hills and berms that are generally ridden by pumping your arms and legs to propel yourself forward rather than pedaling or pushing, although pedaling and pushing can be used as well. These tracks are mainly constructed using dirt and can be topped with asphalt to provide a smoother, more accessible surface for riders. The asphalt surface also helps to minimize the amount of maintenance required. Next slide, please. One of the things that's so great about these pump tracks is that all wheels and all skill levels are welcome. You don't have to be an experienced rider to take advantage of these tracks. They're also great for everything from bikes to scooters to boards, rollerblades, wheelchairs, and striders. If it has wheels, it can be enjoyed on this track. Next slide, please. Not only can these tracks be used by all types of wheels and skill levels, they can be used by people of all ages, and in particular, a great amenity for our youth. Pump tracks also promote a healthy, active outdoor lifestyle, allow for opportunities to engage with others who would not typically engage in a team sport setting, teach balance and coordination, and most of all, they are fun. Next slide, please. What are the benefits to our community? First and foremost, amenities that are youth-friendly are one of the key gaps identified through multiple town master plans, including the Innisfil Beach Park Master Plan. Additionally, we heard that the Innisfil Beach Park Master Plan community engagement, as well as other park-related community engagements conducted in recent years, that there's a desire to have amenities that introduce healthy, safe, and active opportunities for young people. Our recent youth engagement strategy echoed these comments and noted that youth are looking for a place where they feel like they belong, a place that provides improved health and wellness, and where youth-led programming and events are welcomed. The addition of the pump track at Innisfil Beach Park will help to fill these gaps and provide a much-needed amenity for the youth of our community. Next slide, please. But why now? The recent community needs assessment that was completed to check in on the pulse of the community during the pandemic identified mental and physical health and wellness, as well as community building, as some of the top priorities for the community. The addition of the pump track will provide an amenity at Innisfil Beach Park that can help facilitate community building and support our community's mental health and wellness through this difficult time. The pump track will further enable our community to enjoy the outdoors, try something new, stay active, and get to know others in the community with similar interests, all while doing so in a manner that aligns with current public health recommendations for physical distancing in outdoor spaces. Next slide, please. And back to Meredith.
Yeah, the other project identified to start before the completion of the implementation plan is the outdoor fitness equipment. Next slide. The benefits of the outdoor fitness equipment to users are, compared with the exercising indoors, exercising in natural environment is associated with greater feelings of revitalization, increased energy, positive engagement, together with decreases in tension, confusion, anger, and depression. She looks like she's having a lot of fun. The next slide. The benefits to Innisfil for the outdoor fitness equipment is the community engagement for the Innisfil Beach Park Master Plan identified the need for new opportunities for more active living for adults. Leisure services could also add the outdoor fitness equipment to their programming. And with good hand hygiene, outdoor fitness equipment can be easily used by numerous people while still maintaining social distancing. Next slide. So where in the park will these amenities be added? Well, the BMX pump track will be located in the area designated through the Innisfil Beach Park Master Plan vision as the neighborhood youth area, located near the existing soccer field. And the outdoor fitness equipment will be located in the port of Innisfil near the existing snack bar. These areas will be further developed after the completion of the implementation plan. So what are the next steps? Well, the next steps will be to commence the design and construction of these new amenities in 2021, so we can all get fit. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much, ladies, for the presentation. Questions from members of council? Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for the presentation. The exercising section looks great. I really like that idea, and I can see that being well used. The other one, it's more like an amusement park, and I don't know if that's what we really wanted for the park. By the look of it, do you have an idea as to how much space that would take in the park?
Some of these images are quite are bigger than what we would have in Innisfil Beach Park, but they're just an example. So the actual size would probably get, worked out through the detailed design, but it would be based on a certain area that we actually have. So there's a space, I think, between there's a washroom by the soccer field, and then there's another washroom close to it, and we'll be utilizing that space in between. So it wouldn't be a huge amenity. Like, it wouldn't be as, in the bottom picture here, it wouldn't be near as big as that one that you see.
Okay, can I
follow up? Sure.
Follow up, please. Okay, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Is there going to be directions as to how it's used by the riders? It's just going to a grocery store and trying to follow the arrows in the aisles is almost impossible. And so how do they do that without having an accident? I can see this as a horror show, to be honest. And I guess it's my age talking here, but I just can't see it being feasible.
So of course we would have to work that out with operations and come up with safe practices, just like a lot of the other amenities that we have. We have rules for our playgrounds. We have rules for the Cookstown ice rink. So we looked at, when we put the Cookstown ice rink in, for example, we looked at all the possibilities, and I think we've even had to tweak the rules a bit over the years since it's been open, but we would look at having specific rules for that.
Just to add to what Ms. Goodwin has noted there, with any new amenity, we do look at opportunities to do some public education. So this would be a good candidate for us to do some public education on how to use this great new amenity.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. I think the BMX track and the fitness amenities are great starts for the area. And I can say to Councillor Payne, my son and his friends would love a BMX track here in Guildford as well, too. So if there's a pump track that's available, if we can't put it in Innisfil Beach Park, by all means, we'll find room here in Guildford for it. I know that my son's already done the natural trails in the Kitchener-Waterloo area with my brother, and this would just be an amazing thing for the kids. So yeah, I really hope this is something that council grabs onto and gravitates to, because it would be just so much fun. And believe me, the kids figure out exactly which way to go, and it runs really well. So I really hope this works out. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? I'm sorry, I saw a bunch of hands, and then, okay, Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I do agree. This is a really fun thing for our youth. I'm a little confused about how we as council can balance, we had this resident feedback where one of the highest ratings was for, green space and kind of a passive space in our park. And to my knowledge, it wasn't a specific ask for this pump track. So how do we as council balance the need for green space and quiet in the park, which is, as we know, not a huge space, and there's a lot of things planned for it over the years. I'm wondering how we do that.
Ms. Goodwin? Jenkins?
I'll take a stab at this one. Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Yeah, so the master plan itself does identify that there are certain areas that will have green space available, and other areas where we will be adding amenities and programming and events might be available. So as Meredith mentioned, the footprint for this is not overly large. Unfortunately, I didn't include any photos, or sorry, we didn't include any photos in the presentation to show a local example of this, which is up in Washago. And it's a fairly small footprint. It's in a community park, and so, you know, we believe that we can integrate both these new amenities and still maintain green space to allow residents and the public to enjoy both sides of the park.
Thank you. Councillor Waters?
Yeah, I guess my question is during the surveys, then we came up with the activities in the park. The idea of the pump track, was that a specific request from several people in the survey, or is this something that was just requested in terms of an activity and staff have come up with this? Like, I think I agree with Councillor Nicol. We really do need something for our youth, because I hear it all the time. There's nothing in Innisfil to do. There's nothing in Innisfil to do for our youth, and that's why, you know, trouble starts. And so I think this is a great activity because I think they would love it. The question becomes, is the park the most appropriate place for it? So my question would be, is during the surveys, did people request the BMX bike park in the park, or was it just a general activity they were looking for?
Ms. Jenkins or Ms.?
Through your worship to Councillor Waters, although our master plan was led by our planning department, my understanding is that through some of the public feedback, this was an amenity that was suggested. And so, you know, as we collected comments through the entire master plan process, this was something that was integrated into the master plan. And meets a number of the categories that we heard through public engagement as well, with respect to finding amenities that will assist youth in having a place to call their own.
I know I wasn't part of, the engineering team wasn't part of the open house for the Innisfil Beach Park master plan, but I hosted the Town Square master plan and, the Town Square project open house. And I specifically remember being my shirt being pulled on by a little guy who said, please put in a pump track. So, and that's not the first time that I've heard it. So I've definitely heard it from other engagements.
Thank you. Councillor Van Berkel?
My question was along the same lines as Alex. I'm trying to, in the back of my mind, when the open houses that we had, I don't remember a pump track. It was like just come in after the survey, after the public meetings. Was that part of our vision that we approved a pump track? I'm sorry, I just don't remember a pump track.
Thank you. I think we have somebody from planning on here. Mary Nordstrom. Hi, Mary. Can you?
Good evening. Through you, Mayor, to the comments. So while the pump track wasn't specifically included in that public open house, it did come from comments at the open house and from community engagements. And it was presented to the Innisfil Beach Park ad hoc committee and was part of the visioning that went before council in the ultimate vision plan that was approved. So I hope that provides some clarity and
follow up, Your Worship. Yeah, I remember the like the splash pad and the dog park. Pump track is something new. I just don't remember it. I'm sorry. It also seems to take up an awful lot of room in the park. That you know, by the time you put a splash pad, a bump track, and dog park, is there any room left, any green space left? There's soccer fields. I don't know. I mean, questions, that's all.
Thank you for that. Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you. Yes, I have lots of questions that I thought that would be handled when we have the item, as you know, as opposed to the presentation section. Some of the questions have been, you know, answered that I do have, which was the location of the BMX. So the soccer field is over, just clarification, over by the tennis courts area. And is that So the skateboard park and the BMX are proposed to be in that location, because I think one of the times the skateboard, we're not talking about skateboard, I'll leave it. Okay, so also the question, I think some staff have asked about the engagement strategy on the BMX and when that came forward. So you've answered that. I guess the other question I'm going to ask is, have you looked at other locations for the BMX, or were you just looking at this in the park as an amenity that fits in with the youth center?
Ms. Goodwin or Ms. Jenkins?
Through your worship, to Councillor Asadi, we did look at a number of different locations for this. As we mentioned, there was a number of different park engagements that have taken place over recent years. And as Meredith noted, this has been a common request and a common theme. So when we started getting these types of requests, we did take a look at where we thought the ideal location for this amenity was. And we think that Innisfil Beach Park is the right location for a couple reasons. In the short term, this space in the park is fairly underutilized. It's over near the tennis courts, sort of adjacent to the parking lot that is there. And the master plan identifies that this will become sort of the youth hub in the future as we continue to develop the park. So it will help with, the short-term plans of providing youth a place to go in an underutilized area of the park. And as we move forward with, future plans to further develop the park in a way that will better accommodate larger events and that sort of thing, this will become a great opportunity for us to potentially look at, partnering with local cycling networks or other, partnerships where we could look at hosting events here and look at revenue generation opportunities as well. So, for a number, those are a few of the reasons. There's many more reasons why this is a great location for this amenity and why we've chosen Innisfil Beach Park. And as mentioned, it was included in the community consultation as well. So that is why it's here tonight for your consideration.
And follow up. And the implementation plan, can you just, I don't know whether your worship that's something I can ask now, or that needs to be in pulling the item for the C1.
So yeah, we can pull C1, have some further discussion if you like.
Yes.
I think, can you ladies hang out with us this evening? Great. All right, any other questions specific to the presentation on the pump track? Deputy Mayor Davidson? Excuse me.
That was my recommendation, that we wait till we deal with it at council and we pull it and deal with it then. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions about the pump track? Seeing none, then the recommendation is that the presentation be received. And that's moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Nicol. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. So that finishes with the presentations this evening. Next, we go to delegations. We've had 2 delegations requested this evening. The first one is from Tara Filto. So Tara, if you're here with us, you can turn on your video and your sound, and welcome.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. I wanted to first and foremost thank all of you for taking the time to listen to our delegation tonight. I also wanted to give thanks to Chris Cannon, which is the designated planner on this project, and he was kind enough to share both a phone call as well as many back and forth emails to allow us to fully understand the details of this design before presenting this evening. And on that note, my name is Tara Filto. I'm a parent and community advocate. I'm also co-chair of Parent Council at Alcona Glen Elementary School. And this evening, I'm presenting this delegation on behalf of the 183 concerned community members that have signed our petition in the last 4 days. Tonight, we're presenting with the hopes that by the end of our delegation, you would be in favor of reconsidering the design with the designated entry and exit way off of Innisfil Beach Road that is in the current design for 1326 Innisfil Beach Road, which is also known as the old Woke-Up House. Next slide. So I'd like to begin the presentation just by giving a brief history of the issues that we've experienced along this site so that you can have a better understanding of where our concerns are coming from. As most of you know, 1326 IBR is adjacent to Alcona Glen Elementary School, which is a school that is home to over 700 students in our town. It's considered one of the largest elementary schools in Simcoe County. Alcona Glen is considered a walking school, which means that we do not have buses that transport our students, and approximately half of our students' population walk to and from school right in front of 1326 Innisfil Beach Road on a daily basis. Next slide. So for many years, parents have advocated for better traffic safety, and it was back in 2017 when our council recommended that staff hire a third-party consulting company to perform a traffic study in and around Alcona Glen. And this was done after our former deputy police chief had recorded over 31 traffic violations in just under 30 minutes that she was parked outside of the school. Unfortunately, the study that was conducted in 2018 was never reviewed or considered in the design process for 1326 IBR, and we would very much appreciate it if staff could review this study and consider it when planning the exit and entryway. Since the creation of our town's traffic safety committee a little over 3 years ago, we've had many meetings and conversations about traffic safety in and around the school. And I think the council members that sit on that committee could probably relate when I say that there's no easy fix. However, one thing for sure is the additional exit and entryway, putting that in there where there's hundreds of students that walk every day is simply not safe. And unfortunately, we feel that the individuals that are most affected by this project were never consulted. Next slide. And if you can click again, please. We've provided a list of all 31 comments as well as 181 petition signatures in the presentation for your review. Next slide, please. So as you know, the development design has increased significantly from 29 townhomes to 138 four-story condo and apartment units. Which equals to approximately 280 new residents in a very tight-knit area. Not to mention that the ground level of this design is designated to commercial space, which will also increase traffic flow in an already very problematic location. Next slide, please. The north side of this location is also backed by a piece of land that is designated for development. And the traffic report that was submitted with this project confirmed that this new subdivision was not considered. So we must acknowledge that the additional back-end development will create a significant increase in traffic flow, and therefore the numbers provided in the traffic report are inaccurate. Next slide, please. So if you ask if the developers followed the Planning Act, absolutely. However, if you were to ask if this information was misleading, I would also say that absolutely it was. There are significant factors that were not considered when creating this design, and just because it's allowed doesn't make it right. And the one-fit-all approach, particularly with this development, is just not acceptable in this case. We can't treat a development that's within a few feet away from a school, elementary school, just like any other development along Innisfil Beach Road. And so we're here tonight and we're asking you, our mayor and our deputy mayor and our members of council, to consider doing the right thing here. Next slide, please. We've created a full list of items to consider when voting on the design of this project. The first one is the Ainsley report that was conducted in 2018. To my knowledge, this is probably one of the most recent studies that we have around the school, and this report was not consulted. The town's very own traffic safety and school zone advisory committee have not yet had the opportunity to provide comments or feedback on the design, to my knowledge. the developing area behind this project will also increase traffic flow as mentioned, and this was not considered in the reports. The developer stated that mailings went out to all homes within 120 meters of this development. But when you dig a little bit deeper, you'll find that, in fact, that only included 60 landowners that fell into that catchment area, which is a far cry from the number of homes that are within the school's 1.6 walking distance, which means that most parents and students never had the opportunity to provide feedback. There's also an opportunity for both, developers of this project and the one behind it to work together and provide feedback in alternative exit and entry points, but this was not considered. Next slide, please. The Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit Active School Travel Committee was also never considered for feedback. This committee includes school staff, parents, students, members of council, and town staff, and this development should have been brought to their attention. Finally, the developer themselves have admitted that redesigning wasn't impossible, but it's unlikely due to the approximate $1 to $1.5 million that it would cost to do so. And so with a significant increase of units from 29 to 138 comes a significant increase in profit. Therefore, this should not be a determining factor. Next slide, please. So we cannot prioritize the loss of revenue to a developer over the safety of our children. And I think that's something, it's a point that's really, really important to consider here with this location. Next slide, please. In conclusion, we can probably all agree here tonight that designing a school off of Innisfil Beach Road was never the safest design to begin with. And we understand that the town had no say in this location. Unfortunately, parents today are left with the consequences of a school that was most likely designed for a small town road. And we understand that our small town is growing and that there's not much we can do to prevent that growth from happening. But as we continue to grow, all that we ask is that you, our council, consider the safest options possible for this design, and to please reconsider the current entry and exit on this project. We all know that it takes a village, and we need you to help us make it the safest one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Filto. Questions or comments for Ms. Filto? I have one, if I could. So you're co-chairing the Alcona Glen Parent Council?
I am, yes.
Good for you. That's a big job. So has the Parent Council weighed in? Have we got a recommendation or a resolution from them?
So our Parent Council has not been consulted. We have our next meeting next week. So this issue is being brought forward at our next meeting. So what happened here is I basically found out about that this was being brought to council last week. So we're bringing it to our Parent Council next week, and we're going to have a vote, and we'll bring a recommendation forward, a letter to council with our feedback.
Okay. And then my other question was you talked about the 120 meters, which is designated in the Planning Act, but it also, we put a big sign on the property when we're rezoning it. So if people were walking their children to school, they would have to walk past that sign, I would think.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on, every time you walk by a sign, do you look at it and figure out when you can send in feedback? Like, I think that's what it comes down to initially. I personally, when I walk down a street, I don't necessarily always look at the signs and look at the dates of when to provide feedback. So I think that if you actually want the feedback, you have to go out and get it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of Councillor Sadi?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Tara. Just one comment on the petition that you submitted, 181 signed. But if we look at the addresses and everything on that petition, I know it's hard to get the tools, and you know, in a short period of time, you have to grab whatever there is. And so I can appreciate that that is hard. But in looking at that, I always look at the names and everything. There was people in addresses from British Columbia, and I think there was one from the East Coast. There was many from the city of Barrie and other areas. So as a councillor, I do not look at those ones for comments. I do look at the ones from the town of Innisfil. So just sharing that out of the 181, I would just be looking at Innisfil resident comments for that. And thank you for all your hard work and your presentation, and it will be up for a discussion tonight and clarification on some points with staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of council wish to? Councillor Payne?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question on the design of the 1326 Innisfil Beach Road. Is there another option as to where the entrance and exit can be, or is that the only location where it can be? And if it is, would it be possible to have lights put there to allow the children to push the button to go walking across and the traffic would stop for them? Would that be a possibility?
So I think Councillor Payne, if you don't mind, we'll wait until we get to that staff report and have those discussions then. Just if you had any, unless you had any questions specific to Ms. Filto that you wanted to, because this will be the last opportunity for questions and answers from Ms. Filto.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you. I'll wait. Thank you. Councillor
Sadi.
Sorry, just one more question. Tara, when this came to council before in a public open house for comments and that, I think you spoke at that time. So I'm wondering, and I don't remember how far back that was, it's probably about a month ago, was there an opportunity to share that with the parent council at that time to get their input into the development as opposed to, I believe it's your next meeting is coming up next month. Thank you.
Yes, the meeting you're referring to happened in, if I'm not mistaken, it was in July. So we weren't in session yet. We only had our first meeting in October. And so I was not aware that this was being brought to council. And when I found out, that was about a week ago. So we didn't have any, we've only had one meeting since the beginning of the year. And so there was no opportunity to bring this to their attention until now.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the recommendation is that the delegation be received with thanks, and that is moved by Councillor Sadi, seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Filto. Appreciate it. And yeah, as you know, we'll be dealing with that later if you want to hang on or watch on live stream, whatever makes you happy. Thanks. Okay, then. So that takes us to the next delegation, and our next delegate is Leslie Pollock. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Pollock.
Your Worship, it's Mr. Parkin here, the clerk. We got an email from Mr. Pollock just at the start of the meeting advising that he wasn't able to attend. But he did provide some comments in writing, and with your permission, I'll just quickly read that out for council's information, if that's okay.
That's great, thank you.
So he's written, "Good evening, Ms. Toma, the Deputy Clerk. Unfortunately, I'm on the road traveling home and will not be able to delegate." And his comments are as follows. "The Ainley report was submitted to council in January 2019 and referred to the School Zone Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. It was on their agenda in March of 2019, but only received as information and no action was taken. The Ainley report pointed out important key issues that many feel should be taken into consideration with the proposed development of 1326 Innisfil Beach Road. Second point is, has the school administration and the school's parent council been made aware of the plan for 1326 Innisfil Beach Road so that their comments and concerns could be considered? I know that the Simcoe County District School Board Planning Department has responded, but my question is that the school administration and parent council being notified and given an opportunity to respond. The third comment he had, has there been any response from the Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board. Fourth comment, there are two proposed combination entrance exits to the site, both on Innisfil Beach Road. The easterly one is within 20 meters of the exit driveway of Alcona Glen. Would it be possible for the developer to only have the westerly combined entrance exit driveway? And the last comment, are both of the proposed entrance exit driveway only accessible from westbound Innisfil Beach Road and only allow vehicles exiting the development to turn westbound onto Innisfil Beach Road? My concern would be if the vehicles are allowed to turn eastbound onto Innisfil Beach Road, they would be crossing 2 lanes of westbound traffic on Innisfil Beach Road. As we know, traffic on Innisfil Beach Road is increasing, and with the school adjacent to this proposed development, it causes great concern for the safety of students and parents of Alcona Glen Elementary School, as they're all walkers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parkin. So I guess then instead of a delegation, it should say that the comments, the written comments from Mr. Pollock be received. And can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Fowler and Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? And that is carried. So that brings us now to the consent agenda, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, sorry. No, next is committee, county council, and any committee updates from members of council. Councillor Fowler.
Good evening, Your Worship. Just to inform the public, the pitching committee is meeting tomorrow night. We have spoken with the COVID-19 task force and have been given some current regulations that we need to look at very seriously. The potential to have an actual pitch-in day may occur this year. It all depends on the weather and if we can meet the regulations and get in the guidelines. But we will be presenting a report to council come the November 11th meeting, and then giving our thoughts on the matter and seeing if we can get council's approval to move forward with it. Thank
you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. On behalf of County Council this week, our warden was acclaimed. George Cornell was acclaimed, so that was kind of good news for him. He's done a great job so far. And of course, you've heard that our Mayor Dolan has thrown her hat into the ring for deputy warden, so we'll see where that goes in the future. Also, we dealt with trying to improve the ambulance service within Simcoe County to a higher level. We're hitting at 55, but we'd like to aim higher, so that got 100% support from County Council as well. And I just want to say is that I want everybody to remember that the county is working very hard with Beaton, with our nursing home there and the breakout of COVID. And I know that I have full confidence in Jane Sinclair and her team and the work that she's doing to protect our seniors. So my thoughts are out to that team. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Anyone else have committee comments? Councillor Van Berkel.
Just a question for Councillor Fowler. You mean pitch in next year, not this year?
No, actually, Councillor Van Berkel, this year. We are actually looking at doing it, weather permitting, late November, possibly, if we can get it done. As I said, we've spoken to the COVID-19 task force, and they've given us some clear direction on what we can do. So we're going to make some hard decisions tomorrow night to see if we can push for it. And if we can make it happen, we'll do our best.
I kind of knew that, but I don't think the public knew that there would be one this year.
Well, we put it on hold last year. Or we put on hold earlier this year with the potential to do it. However, we weren't, we were sitting back watching things unfold on a provincial level before we moved forward in any capacity.
Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you. Councillor Payne.
Thank you. I just, this morning I had my first meeting with the New Tecumseh Museum, or the Alliston's Museum on the Boyne. And it was quite interesting. It was a lot of nice folks on that committee. So I think it's going to be a fun committee. I just wanted to ask, and they're looking for an old fireplace that works. So if anyone has an old fireplace that they're not using or whatever, they would love the donation. So just let me know if anybody comes across a fireplace that doesn't even have to be real, as long as it shows the fire and everything. So that was just one of the questions that they asked. So I'm just passing it on. Other than that, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Anybody else have any updates? I have two very quick ones. One is the Police Services Board is diligently working through the budget, and it will be presented to council during, I guess, one of the 2 budget days. And the health unit, God bless them, working very hard. Nobody's taken any holidays this year. It's just gone a bit insane. Little worrisome seeing the numbers this week. They've climbed again. Dr. Gartner thinks it probably is in relationship to people not obeying the Thanksgiving not gathering rules. There was, I think, 40 cases last week that were connected, that they've actually connected to a Thanksgiving gathering within Simcoe Muskoka. So here today, this week, we've already had 16 cases in 3 days, and that's our record was 15 for the whole week last week, and the record before that was 10 for the week before. So we're going in the wrong direction, and we really have to buckle down and do our part. So with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda and the consent list. And if there's anybody who hasn't been here before, what we do is we go through the list of reports. If council's pleased with the report and the recommendation that staff has made, they won't pull it. And at the end of the meeting, we will confirm those recommendations in a council meeting. And those reports that are pulled, they will be either for discussion, debate, or amended recommendations. So we'll start with A1, the special council minutes of October the 7th. A2, the special council meeting minutes of October the 14th. A3, the council meeting minutes from October the 14th. B1, the school zone traffic safety advisory committee report from September the 29th. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Your Worship. As it's not a recommendation, it's just in the report here. I just wanted to touch on or make a comment about the 8.7, the ATV bylaw discussion that was going on. This is the second time I've seen this in the minutes with the committee. To me, I'm unaware of any issues, especially in the hamlet areas of town. I did read today in the paper that 4 charges were laid against ATV drivers this past weekend, but they were all in Springwater for no trail permits. To me, this is why many of us moved to be here, to be outdoors. So I hope that we will engage the entire community before looking to make any changes, because we have so many law-abiding residents, farmers, and people plowing neighbors' driveways, heading out ice fishing, or launching little boats. I'm curious where all these residents and others would find room for parking if they had to trailer their side-by-sides, ATVs and UTVs around town. So I just hope the committee will really consider these things before they have any recommendation that comes to council. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And just to be clear, that was discussed in the minutes, and but there was no recommendation brought forward to council. So and that committee can't make any decisions. They're an advisory committee, so everything would have to come to this table first. Just in case there's anybody, very upset right now. Okay, next is B2, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee report. C1, the Innisfil Beach Park projects report. Councillor Orsatti.
We can refer that one, please.
Thank you. C2, the bylaw to receive municipal transit enhanced cleaning funds. Councillor Orsatti.
Pull that one, please.
Thank you. C3, the Safe Restart Agreement. C4, the schedule of meetings for 2021. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't need to pull this. I just wanted to ask, as we're still going here virtually, there's virtually no impact to me personally as last year, but just curious, I know that we switched from the first and third week to the second and fourth week to help align with county council. And I'm just hoping that this still works for the mayor and deputy mayor to line up these schedules properly. And if so, then I have no problem with it.
Sorry, Councillor Nicol, I'm not sure I understood your meaning. Is this what you prefer or what you don't prefer?
Sorry, Your Worship. As last year, going from the 1st and 3rd to the 2nd and 4th was a big change in my household, but we worked through that because it was for the betterment for the mayor and deputy for county council. So I'm just asking if this still works for mayor and deputy for the county council meeting alignment. If that's the case, then I have no problem with the way it's recommended.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't want to cause anybody else any inconvenience. I know that it is what it is. I mean, if members of council want to switch to the other dates of the week, I'd look to clerks to see if they want to bring back an amendment. Councillor Nicol?
Sorry, Worship. No, I have no problem with the amendment or the report as it's written. I just want to make sure it worked for yourself and the deputy mayor, that this does align with you guys. The whole idea of moving it last year was to align your schedules to make it more beneficial to be able to take care of both roles and responsibilities. I just want to make sure that still worked. If that's the case, I have no concerns whatsoever.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank
Perfect.
you. One quick question about, there was a change in the June schedule for the Lake Simcoe Foundation dinner, which gives us now 2 weeks in a row we meet. The last week of May and the first week of June we meet, and then we don't meet for 2 weeks. I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm guessing that by early June, I don't know whether we'll be having, 800 to 1,000 people in a banquet hall yet. So I just wondered whether or not it's necessary to switch the night for that one dinner. That might possibly not happen. I'm gonna defer to Councillor Waters because it's the Lake Simcoe Region Foundation.
Personally, I would rather hold a date for that still, just in case the vaccine comes out early and they can go ahead with it, because it's a really important event for the Conservation Authority. So I think it's fairly easy for us to work around it.
Good enough. Okay, so we're going to leave that and not pull it because we are not making any amendments. Next is item C5, which is the report regarding the 9th line speed limit change. Councillor Waters, you want to pull that?
Yes, I do. Okay. Thank you.
All right, next is the Limerick second line and Dempsey parking bylaw amendment. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Again, I don't need to pull this. I just want to thank staff. These new restrictions appear to be perfect fit to accommodate the influx of the ice fishermen, while still providing the proper sight lines and protecting our residents. This is something that's been ongoing for a while, and we've cleared up the problems at Guilford Road, Shore Acres, and now we've cleaned up the second line. So hopefully we're not pushing it too much closer to Councillor Van Berkel's area, but we seem to have cleaned up the Guilford now. So this is great. Thanks to staff.
Don't worry, we'll push it back.
All right, next is C7, the Scrooge the Ticket campaign. This is our 6th year and it's a really popular program. So really happy to see it come back, and thank you to staff for continuing it. Excuse me. C8, 1326 Innisfil Beach Road. Councillor Orsatti wants to pull that. C9, the 1760 Cross Street second dwelling unit. And Councillor Van Berkel's declared on this. And we're not pulling it. Okay. Next is staff report D1, which was deferred. Bylaws E1, which is the town's road system public highway purpose for forming part of Evelyn Street. Any comments? Seeing none. Then that's that. So there's no correspondence for action. There's no correspondence for information. So the consent list agenda recommendations, we are pulling.
You do C9 separate, Your Worship?
Nope. Yes. So if you look at the number 2 in the recommendation, it says that you're deemed not to have voted on or discussed. And that matches my list. So mover and a seconder for this consent list agenda. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Ices, all those in favor? That's carried. So first up is items, oh, sorry, we have to resolve into committee of the whole, moved by Councillor Payne and seconded by Councillor Fowler, all those in favor? That's carried. And now we can go to item C1, which was Councillor Sadi pulled it.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just finding the mouse again here. It'll be a busy evening. My seconder for pulling this item is Councillor Ken Fowler. And what I wanted to I had some additional questions on this and wanted to thank both our Jessica and sorry, the presentation that we had this evening. So looking at the staff report for this project and the recommendations in it was to, just pulling it up, that it has, I'm just pulling, actually I printed off, sorry. That the financial consideration of this was a cost of $120,000 for the Innisfil Beach Park Master Plan Implementation Plan. And what I'd like is just a better explanation of that implementation plan from staff. Then it was the BMX pump track of $265,000 plus additional staff time, total $292,000. Outdoor fitness equipment, a total estimate $233,000 remaining funds. And this was staff requesting to use the pre-approved budget that was approved before, but just sliding around some of the items. So first I'm going to ask for an explanation or better description of what happens in the implementation plan. It will help me with the follow-up questions that I have on this item. So I'll start with that one.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins or Ms. Goodwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will ask Ms. Goodwin if she would like to tackle this one.
So with all the plan, there's as we said, there's 40 projects included in this master plan, and there's a lot of information that we need to pull to be able to better phase and decide what goes first. And as we mentioned in our presentation, that we'll need to look at environmental impacts, we'll need to look at culture impacts, we'll need to look at heritage impacts, we'll need to look at traffic impacts. But we also need things like studies, like geotechnical studies. What's the soil underneath? What's the utility requirements? So if we're putting up a new building, what are the water and sanitary that they're going to need? And we want to make sure that as these amenities get added and phased, even in the next 20 years, that we don't put anything in the ground that, or not put something in the ground. So if we were just to start and start projects in the next that were recommended as short term, we could be missing something and that could cost us money in the long term. So we want to make sure we phase this properly and stage it appropriately.
Follow up, Councillor Seti.
Thank you, yes. And I think that is, some of the key description of the doing the background studies and looking at missing something. And for me, the part of this consideration asked to start on the exercise equipment. I have no problem with that. I think it's a good fit in the park, widely used to start that. And I don't see how an environmental study or anything, background study on that would be required. I do have a concern with the BMX pump track. And I am just, it's not that I am saying, disagreeing that this would be a widely used amenity. As a mother of 2 sons who are now grown up now, they would put a bullseye on my back if I said that it wasn't used. I can see, and we can all agree that the youth in our town need amenities, and they need amenities that are cost effective, something like skateboard or BMX, that it doesn't cost anything to use, and the physical activity, the mental health that it helps. The one thing that, you know, when I was listening to your presentation and some of the other questions, you know, about this particular BMX, I feel that the options and alternatives in this one is that we should be looking at doing the implementation report to include the citing rationale and of this, and to make sure that we are gathering the right information, because we only have one opportunity to do this right. And doing the implementation plan with including a citing location rationale would ensure that this is the right location, the right fit, and we're spending our money wisely in the park, that this is the right amenity in there. And I know that staff had mentioned that they had looked at, I don't know, I think other locations, or justified that they felt that this was a good location because of parents doing another activity and kids here with the youth center. But I just feel that when we looked at the data that was in this report from the engagement, 68%, you know, ranked walking, relaxation, 63%, swimming, 56%, the dogs, and the 33% in the gym at 31. So it's not about whether this would be used. It's not about taking anything away from youth. It's ensuring it's going in the right location, and that we do the implementation plan and the studies first. So I have no problem with moving forward on the exercise equipment. But I think that this one, because it was based on recommendations and you know, input from staff on discussions and engagement strategies, that we need to make sure that for our youth, this is the right location. So I will be putting an amendment forward, but I'm opening this up for discussion with council before I do that.
So is that all? Have you got any more questions?
No, my questions were before about the location, you know, the construction material of it, so the feedback. I'm just looking here.
You've got your questions answered for now. Is that right, Councillor?
My apologies. Sorry, Your Worship.
No, that's good. I'm good. Other questions or comments on the recommendation that's on the floor at this time? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. As staff has identified, this is an opportunity to get something going right away. As Councillor Orsatti alluded to too, that the youth needs something to do, and this would be a great opportunity, great track. I would hate to see it slowed down just to go through a little bit more studying. I can tell you, using that part of the park for daycare in the past over the summer is heavily underutilized, and I think that'd be a perfect spot with least impact to the rest of the park and give the kids just something amazing to do. So I'd really hate to have to prolong this another year before getting this kind of amenity. I think this would be an amazing thing for next spring for the kids. And quite honestly, after all of us being cooped up for this whole year, I think the kids would love something in the springtime to be able to utilize. So I hope that council will have the fortitude to go through with this, believing in staff and that they've already gone through the work. We've already gone through the master plan. We've identified some of these things that are wanted and needed for the community. So I hate to stall it at this point when there's a great opportunity to have something to celebrate next spring. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. A question to staff is that I agree with Councillor Nichols. I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's a great activity, and I think it's something that youth will really go after. So I think it's something that they would want, and I think sometimes we have to stop thinking like adults and start thinking about youth in our town. My question is, we get such conflict of uses in the park during the summertime. That have the staff thought of how who's going to be able to use the park, the BMX pump track? Because on great sunny weekends, if the visitors are going to be there using it and our kids can't use it, it kind of defeats the purpose. So I guess my question is, have they thought about how this BMX park is going to be used, and will our kids have access to it?
Mr. Inwood.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I'll jump in quickly to help address Councillor Waters' comments. I think one of the keys behind Innisfil Beach Park is its proximity to so many homes. We have, I believe it's something like 800 homes within a kilometer distance where the youth that live in the immediate area, whether it's a busy day or not, will have access to the park by riding their bike straight in. So there shouldn't be an issue related to utilization, even if it is a busy weekend. And I want to jump on to the comments around the space and the location that's been identified. And I'll remind council and everybody watching that historically, over the last number of years, that area has been used as overflow parking for cars, which the Innisfil Beach Park ad hoc committee, in consultation with staff and ultimately recommended to council, is that we would be phasing that piece out. But it shows what kind of utilization what we're getting out of that space is that we were parking cars on it. So having some formal programming back there would certainly allow for a better utilization of the facility. And then based on the criteria that is in front of you in this report today, it doesn't disturb, it's not a significant undertaking to install this project. So just thought I would add a few points, Your Worship, and help council be fully informed as they consider this.
Thank you. Follow-up, Councillor Waters?
No, that's fine. I think that was a good point that Jason brought up. So I appreciate his comments. So that it is right now it is being used as a parking lot and it is underutilized. So something I didn't even think of during that. So would I rather have parking or rather have a pump track? I'd rather have a pump track.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. I wonder where Innisfil Cruisers are going to go do their next show, because I know that some of these organizations use the park for their show and that area that they particularly like when they can park the cars on grass. I also concur with Councillor Sadi that maybe there's a better location, and all the staff are saying, hey, we did surveys, did surveys, let's see what the people want. Councillor Sadi, the statistics that you have come from a survey that we did of 917 people. 68% of the survey used the park for walking, 63% for relaxing. The need for quiet green space is the priority, and 47% of the survey respondents suggested water sports rentals as enhancing the feature of the park, a splash pad, and a dog park. This BMX pump track that was brought to our attention, and the people in the area said this wasn't on the survey before. And yet we use surveys for everything else when we're trying to defend what staff is doing. Councillor Payne and Councillor Nichols, I think, said it perfect. It'd be nice if it could go somewhere else. It's nice that we focus on those 800 homes, but we have a lot more homes throughout Innisfil where there's nothing. And I can point out Ward 5 and Ward 6, there's no attractions for anybody or any of those kids in these two wards particular. So if we're going to use our survey and go by that information, which has been pounded at me numerous times, we seem to be ignoring the results of that survey. So we'll see where this goes. And if Councillor Sadi has a revised recommendation, I'd love to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Fowler?
I have to agree with our Deputy Mayor. Ward 5 and Ward 6 have very few amenities. And as much as I appreciate the fact that we want to turn Innisfil Beach Park into our crown jewel of the town, if you look at any crown, there's more than one gem in it. There's always other places you can look, other places you can see. Even Councillor Nicol himself said that if we're not placing it there, put it down in Guildford. There's lots of kids that would love it down there. I've driven through Ward 5 countless times, and we have green space. We have very few parks. And something like this, I think, would be ideal for a lot of our youth that don't have the ability to get down to 25th as quick as they can to a location that's for something that they can do. I think it's only fair to keep it open to other wards as well. But that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rayner or Mr. Inwood?
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate Council's comments, and I know Jessica and Meredith do as well. And I will remind Council that while we are having a discussion about Innisfil Beach Park specific this evening, there are many initiatives happening up and down the entire length of our municipality, including shoreline enhancements, road end development, park development that come along with our new developments, park redevelopment. There are a series of projects that are outlined in previous budgets and will be presented again to Council in the future budgets that outline where and when and how we'll be doing further enhancements to all of our parkway network, or all the park network throughout the community. So just wanted to make sure that that's on everybody's mind, that while we are talking about Innisfil Beach Park, the park program in its entirety is very much inclusive of all wards, all areas of development throughout the municipality.
Thank you. Councillor Van Berkel?
And thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Orsatti. I mean, I'd like to see a bump track somewhere. It's needed. I mean, I'd like to see in Ward 2 because the skate park beside the arena is closed down. It's in such disrepair. So, you know, every ward needs something. But I have a big problem with putting all this stuff in the park. You know, you're going to put a skate park in the park, and you're going to put bump track in the park. You're going to put a splash pad in the park, a dog walk in the park. You know, by the time this is all done, there is no park. You know, by the time people park and all these amenities are in there, I mean, there's no grass to sit on. So I have a bit of a problem with that. And the other problem I have, and I say this again, I don't remember this on the surveys, and I don't remember this at public meeting. I didn't, maybe, you know, I'm getting old, my memory fails me, but I don't remember this. This came up after the surveys, after the public open houses. And, you know, I don't think it was part of our vision. Part of our vision was, yes, we need to do something for our youth, but not this particular item in the park. So it's good. I'd like to see it somewhere in town, but I think the park is the wrong place.
Councillor Nicol? And then I'll go back to you, Meredith.
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarification for the rest of the staff, a bit in jest there where I was saying that if we don't want to put it in Innisfil Beach Park, let's bring it to Guildford. Quite honestly, as everybody's alluded to, all of our kids need something in each area. So I think this is the first one. This will be going out throughout the rest of the town. I think that, you know, Guildford will see one, Lefroy will see one, continue on. Again, it's been identified. This is a heavily underutilized park, which has access to just the residents in that back corner of the park. So I'm surprised by this council has been so innovative and grasped so many great things, and then we're stalled on a small BMX track, which would just greatly benefit the kids. I don't know why we're stalled on this and getting caught up in one little corner of the park when this could be something that would be just amazing. So again, I didn't mean that let's not put it in Innisfil Beach Park, let's put it in Guildford, let's put it everywhere. So let's start in Innisfil Beach Park. Let's give the residents of Alcona, the kids in Alcona, something else other than just the basketball court, something to do. And then let's start looking for the rest of the community as well. Thank you.
Ms. Goodwin.
Through you, Your Worship, would like to mention that the BMX pump track is actually only 0.3 to 0.4% of the whole total size of Innisfil Beach Park. And I've heard some mention about a splash pad, but the splash pad actually isn't recommended for Innisfil Beach Park. It's going at the Town Square project. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you, Your Worship. Also just wanted to clarify that this was included in numerous iterations of the master plan that did go to the public for and to council for review and comment. And the final, draft version that came before council, and then, after we did further public consultation, and the report was brought back with the final master plan. All of those included the BMX pump track.
Thank you. This I think is when the demographics of our council hurt us. We can relate to the exercise equipment, we can relate to the dog walks, but we can't relate to what the kids want. I sat in on we finished, as it says in the report, the youth engagement strategy, and I sat in on a couple of those meetings, and it was really sad to hear what these kids had to say, that there was no place they felt that they could go that somebody wasn't there looking at them saying they shouldn't be there. So we'll get more into that engagement strategy, but I think if the council's not convinced that this is something kids want, then maybe we should be going back out and doing a survey with the kids and saying, would you use it or wouldn't you use it? Because I can tell you they're building them everywhere right now. So this is not a brand new thing. They're in everybody's plans right now because it's what the kids want to do. I'll also tell you that I was on council, as was probably Councillor Van Berkel, when we built the skateboard park in Stroud. And we built it in an unused piece of behind the curling club. And all the residents in the area came out and said, there was going to be trouble and violence and kids were going to get hurt and kids were going to go there to smoke and there was going to be all these trouble and we'd have to call the police all the time. And that was 15, 20 years ago, and it's never been an issue. What the residents were afraid of happening didn't happen. And so I don't know if that's part of the discussion because, and whether this pump track is going to end up being like affordable housing. Yes, we really need it. We really want it, just not next to me. Put it over somewhere else. So I'm suggesting that if you do wish to go out and ask the kids, ask them. And because there's none of us, I guess I shouldn't be including everyone because there's some people here younger than me, but none of us are in tune with what the kids are looking for these days. And I think that comes down to why we're a little bit more uncomfortable with the concept. Deputy Mayor Davidson, and then Mr. Rayner.
Thank you. I think I don't believe in hangouts. I think these are great hangouts for kids. But Councillor Van Berkel, did you just not say that this current park that we built 15, 20 years ago is pretty well derelict now? So
I'm talking about the one in Lefroy beside the arena.
Yeah, so it's the derelict, you're saying? It's in such poor repair. So here we have something we built a long time ago that we didn't look after, and we're going to go build something new. Why don't we fix what we have? And I know I've seen the one in Stroud. It's in pretty rough shape. It's great to build new, but we're not even looking after what we have now. So why don't we just back that up a bit there on that thought?
Mr. Rayner?
Thank you, Worship, members of council. I just wanted to draw your attention back to the staff report about how the pump track and the exercise equipment was selected. So I think it would be really interesting to hear from council based on the criteria that staff have suggested to you about what kind of project could move forward now so that the community doesn't have to wait for the implementation plan to be completed. What of that criteria do you not want to apply? Is there new criteria? I think, if council can decide what it is that's important to them in terms of moving projects forward, is there another project that you'd like to move forward? Otherwise, I think the question is, is that the right criteria? Staff are telling you that it meets the criteria that is set out there. on page 3. If that's not the criteria you want to use, we're happy to use other criteria. But I think getting into the details of the BMX pump track isn't the purpose of this. The purpose is to say there's a limited amount of weeks left of 2020. Do you want to do something and get going? And if so, what is it? The 2 recommendations in front of you meet the criteria that would allow us to move quickly to deploy something now. If you don't want to deploy it now, that's okay too. But that's where this is going. It's not about when the pump track appeared in a staff report. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. And just one other point too, that I keep hearing about these 40 recommendations in the plan and 40 but many of those recommendations are just enhancements to current things that are already there. Planting 1,000 trees, fixing the tennis courts. It's not adding a new amenity. It's just an action to fix something that's already there. I just wanted like beach enhancements, that kind of thing. Okay, have we got an amendment coming, or are we voting? Or so the motion to amend is on the table, and this was Councillor Arsati and seconded by Councillor Fowler. Questions or comments on the amendment? Councillor Arsati.
So thank you. So I just want to explain that going ahead with the outdoor fitness equipment, I agree with. Continuing the funding for the implementation report is important because it provides all the rationale for these amenities and all others. And I think the siting location, you know, when staff do all the rest of the studies on that, it will determine, is this the right location? Even if it's determined that it stays in the park, is it the right location in the park? And so that's where I'm going. And I'm certainly not stating that, that it's not, youth wouldn't want this, that it's not necessary for the town. It's just that with all the other things that we have, it's about spending our money wisely. It's ensuring that we have the right, the right information to make the right decisions for the park. I went to and sat in on the same youth committee as your worship. And yes, the youth talked about the difficulty and just hanging around the coffee shop, and they do need things. So it's not about saying that this isn't a necessary amenity for the town. Let's just make sure it's in the right location. But in that same youth committee, they also talked and stressed about the importance of green space. So, there's a balance of both. And so what this does is it removes the BMX pump track until the implementation report comes back, but it starts, so it spends the money on that implementation report. It spends the money and starts the outdoor fitness equipment. I don't know, like, are you asking us to question whether, I'm just looking here to decide on other amenities to get going? Is just asking for clarification what you were asking of staff there, your worship.
Mr. Kane?
Yes, sorry, your worship. And I know everyone's keen to move on to other matters on the agenda. I just wanted to clarify a couple matters. One is, this BMX pump track location isn't to preclude all those other uses that, that the park wants to achieve through that master plan. It is certainly complementary, and it does serve a specific need to that park. So, because we're utilizing an underutilized space, isn't going to preclude all those other great uses that that park is capable of, and that will best serve not just the current community, but also the intensification that's happening along Innisfil Beach Road that will ultimately attract much more people to this location. So that's one thing. And then the next thing I wanted to mention is that the idea of implementation plan isn't to reshuffle the deck and start moving all those pieces of the approved master plan within Innisfil Beach Park. Certainly there was siting considered when those uses were put forward to council in that final report. So that siting process has gone ahead, and and all fingers point in the case of the BMX track to this particular location. So, the idea of the implementation plan is just how to implement those projects in those locations as generally approved in the Innisfil Beach Park master plan. The idea isn't to reshuffle the deck now and reopen those discussions where a lot of analysis and staff time and public input have already gone into. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. I have a question, Councillor Sadi. So if you're not sure about the BMS pump track's location, why are you certain that the outdoor fitness equipment is in the right location? Because it's closer to the water. It's in a busier part of the park than the pump track. The pump track's in the extended parking lot. The outdoor fitness equipment is, right in the port. And I wonder why you're worried about where the pump track was going to be located, but you're not worried about where the outdoor fitness equipment is.
I think it's the number of participants. It's also that the size of the, you see all over Europe, outdoor fitness equipment throughout parks fit in. So it seemed, outdoor fitness equipment seems to fit in that area. I don't have a problem with that one. It seems to fit. I just question on the large amenity, is that the right location? And just to, to have that rationale back after looking at this implementation report. We could throw it all back and wait and do nothing.
Or could I suggest maybe a friendly amendment that you add to this, that we do a survey of the kids and see how important it is to them, as opposed to just taking it away?
Well, you could do that, but kids are, of course, they're going to say it's important to them. That's not the question. The question is it important to them in this location? Or if would it be just as widely used and accessible if it was in another location?
Yeah, so maybe did you want to add to your recommendation that question be asked? Just, I feel like the voices are not being heard, and it's unfortunate.
Of course. I think the input of youth is important. There was only 29 votes on the skateboard park. I'm just looking at other things from you. So yes, a friendly amendment would of course be.
Councillor Fowler?
I agree with Councillor Sadi. Again, if we're going to be going back to the youth to get their input on how important this is, I personally would like to find out who has the greatest response to it with their youth. Because if it's somebody, for example, down in Guildford or up in Big Bay Point, and they have 3 times the responses that come forth from those in Alcona, then for a fact that there's going to be a greater response to it in the department, in that particular region. So if we're going to follow up on this and do it in this manner, I would like to have location as one of the options to see who would have the best response to this, if possible, please, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters.
This is not about who wants it. Every kid in Innisfil wants to have a BMX park in their backyard. And I assume that probably over time the areas will get one. So now we're going to set up a competition about who's going to want it the most. Right now, Innisfil Beach Park has parking. It has space it's not using. It's being used for parking, which is the worst possible use for the park during the summertime. Like it says, I'm sure, kids in Ward 5 would love to have one. Kids in Guildford are going to have one. Kids in Stroud and Cookstown are all going to want to have it. Or are we going to set up a competition by listing? I think getting a survey saying, yes, we want to have one is important, because I think kids do want to have it. I think the real question here is that certain people don't want to have it in the park. It's not about the location. They just don't want it in the park. And this is just a way of saying, let's delay it and get it out of there.
Thank you. Mr. Kane, and then Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. And just in response to Councillor Waters' comment, you know, I'm not sure if council, or I just want to remind council, and Mr. Inwood spoke to it a little bit earlier. You know, this pump track isn't coming at all costs to other amenity features throughout the municipality. And to that end, and just in regard to, you know, the perceived competition we might be setting up with respect to further youth engagement and what location is best, you know, keep in mind that the parks master plan is scheduled to be updated next year. So, you know, these would be the perfect discussions to be having, you know, during that process. We're talking about the distribution of facilities, you know, right across the municipality. And in the meantime, you know, we can have a real world example and a functioning example of one of those types of features that, you know, would also inform that parks master planning process. So I just wanted to let council know that, you know, there is a much bigger discussion happening next year when we update the parks master plan. And certainly, you know, the experience that we're learning from Innisfil Beach Park will be quite useful in that exercise. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? I'm sorry, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. I think I was making notes here, and I think you hit it right on the nail on the head when you talked about the justification for the fitness center or fitness activities right down by the water. It was going to clog that area. Councillor Rosati talked about usage and that fitness area would be much better for that. I think the BMX track would be absolutely stuffed with kids if we had the chance to put that there. Again, it's in a spot that is underutilized. It has access to, I'm guessing, hundreds of kids that can just bike right over there from their residence rather than having to come in by car or whatever else. So you know, for all the things we hear at council, I didn't hear anything negative from the residents about this motion whatsoever. It's only from a few members of council that seem to be against having some amenities for kids in a park. And I think it's disappointing that this council wouldn't be strong enough to say, let's build something great for the kids. Let's put it somewhere where they can get to it. And let's build another one in Big Bay Point. Let's build another one in Stroud. Let's build another one in Guildford. Let's put one over in Cookstown. I think that, you know, we're missing the point. And, you know, I really hope that this motion, this amendment fails, because we should be doing these things for the kids. You know, most of them should be probably on PlayStation right now anyways. But if my son knew that we were going to not build a BMX track because it was in the corner of a park, he'd be screaming at me right now as well too. So I think we need to show a bit of fortitude to just go forward this. Again, it's not about the finances. The budget itself is minimal. And the joy that this would bring, again, I'd rather vote against the fitness thing because I think that would be underutilized. I think the BMX track will be just stuffed. I hope the council would really reconsider this. I even got a text from a member of the committee who said, didn't really like it, but listening to this, I love it. I think this would be a great amenity for the park. So I really hope the council will reconsider this and, you know, not vote for this motion, the motion to amend, but actually goes back to the original motion and build something great for the kids for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Ices?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I am really struggling with this as well, because I don't think anybody on this council is arguing with the merits of a BMX pump track. The fact that, as I see it, is, and we did a survey and we had 900 people or whatever respond to it, and this was not on it. And now it's put into the park, and why does it have to go into the park when everybody wants it? For my ward in Stroud, you know, we've got developments going in, and the park is, you know, there's cash in lieu of parkland is what goes to the town. And when will these amenities be spread around? And that's the problem. We voted on a vision for the park, and there's a whole bunch of things, and we know we're going to put that there. And now we have this come up, and it just seems like it should be thought of for another place, because that the uniqueness of Innisfil is that we have these things all over the place. If everything gets dumped into the park, that to me that takes away from the rest of it, and we have so many opportunities elsewhere that's where I struggle with this. So I think you're wasting your time by putting that input for youth in there. It's evident that this is a great thing, but why does it have to be here? That's what I struggle with. So I'll wait to see how this gets voted on, and those are my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Rayner and then Councillor Waters.
Thanks, Worship. I just wanted to address the sort of recurring theme of this survey. So I think it's just really important that Council be clear with staff. If your expectation is that we don't move forward with a single capital project unless there's a survey that lists the specific item, I think that really will be resource intensive and not exactly the way any of our master plans work. So we have multiple different channels of input for our master plans. The survey was one component at one point in time. The fact that your staff came up with suggestions that were provided to them by the community shouldn't be the kind of thing that we're questioning at Council tonight. You want staff to bring forward the recommendations from the community, I assume. So I think it's best to focus on where you want to put your resources and energy in this limited period of time left in this year. And if the BMX track is not one that doesn't make the cut at this time, I think the way it's worded now, it's not a reconsideration to bring the BMX back as part of the implementation plan, or for that matter, at another park in Innisfil. So I suspect it will come back in some other form. I don't think we've seen the death of it if this motion passes the way it is, because it wouldn't be reconsideration. It's not voting against a BMX track, it's removing the BMX track from the initial get going quick and dirty to try to get something done for this season instead of having our community wait again for another year. Thank you, Worship Members of Council.
Thank you. I wish we could get more youth to watch our council meetings. Councillor Waters.
I guess I'd like to point out is that if you take all of Innisfil and you look at the density of residents, is that you'll find the greatest density of residents are in Ward 4 and Ward 3. And you'll also find 5-6 schools in those wards. So we have, between those two wards, we have the greatest population of youth and schools. So a location in one of these two wards is a good idea because that's where most of the youth are. They're going to get the greatest use out of this. Now, the idea is where in one of those two wards would you put it? The park is the obvious location in terms of is that it has parking, it has the space. I'm not too sure I can think of another place where you could put this activity and it would get as much use as it would in the park. So I think just the fact that the density, the two wards have the greatest density, has the greatest number of kids, has the greatest number of schools, just makes sense. It just, some residents don't want it in the park, like they don't want a lot of other things in the park. And so I think location somewhere to start off there because that's where it's got the greatest use. All the other wards I think will get one eventually because the kids are going to demand it. I just think this is one of the better locations for it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Good debate. Any more questions or comments from anyone? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the recommendation. Sorry, Councillor Orsatti, you had a question?
Yes, I'm just questioning the item 5 that's in here, the input from youth. So I think everybody's agreed that input from youth is that they're going to love a BMX. That's not the question. Will it be used? That's not the question. The whole question is for council, is the park is the right location? And if in the park, the rationale for that specific location. So does not that one need to be in there?
That's up to you. It's your motion.
Yeah. So I'm going to say that we don't need the youth engagement because unless it's about the park.
So we know that the youth want it, but we're not going to build it.
Okay.
Okay. We'll call the question. All in favor?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's carried. Next item was C2, which is the bylaw to receive municipal transit enhanced cleaning. Pulled by Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have an amendment for this. I just have some questions, so I thought it was better to pull it to ask for some questions. So if I could get a seconder for this item. Deputy Mayor, thank you. So my questions on this receiving the municipal transit is it's $14,945. I'm going to first say that one of my questions after listening to our MPP's presentation is that there was $79,397 given to the town. So are we looking at just the $14,945 to cleaning public transit and the rest going to transit in general? So that's my first question. That's just because of the delegation today. And then,
as phase one. So the 79,000 was in phase one. This is phase two just for the cleaning. Mr. Kane?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then how do you see this being handled? Because if we're, this is for Uber drivers, and I certainly appreciate and understand the need to keep their vehicles clean and you know, the all the residents. This would be for Innisfil Uber drivers, but would they be signing waivers, or what proof do they have that they're actually cleaning their vehicles with these products or using them? I just need a better understanding of how this works.
Thank you. Who's going to be answering that?
I can start, and then Sarah might add if she wants to. Yeah, just to clarify a couple of the first questions, the money that we're talking about in this report is just for the cleaning, for the supply of cleaners for our Uber vehicles. You know, as you know, the benefits of our system are becoming quite apparent, and we're saving significantly in operations costs these days, which is a blessing. And added to that blessing now is that, there is money available to further improve that service. So the idea is that, we're going to reach out to the Uber community through that Uber platform to find out, what the needs of those drivers are. Once we better understand that, then there will be quite a few shopping carts full of cleaning products to ensure that, we're providing those things that our drivers actually need. Our drivers and Uber have already made a commitment to the cleaning of vehicles and operational changes due to COVID, and those will certainly be maintained. The idea of the cleaning supplies is to augment that further and to further encourage and keep those rides clean moving forward. In terms of trusting drivers to do the right thing, they're trusted members of our community. So yes. We know, and we've heard, through stories that, a lot of people are supplementing their income driving for Uber. They're members of this community. And certainly for something like COVID-19, of all the times we need to trust our residents and our drivers, providing a critical service in the town, this is the time to do it. And certainly this report is all about giving them the supplies to do that easier and better for all of us.
Thank you. Ms. Corcoran, did you have anything to add? Oh, I think you're off mute, but for some reason we can't hear you. While you're sorting that out, I'll get Councillor Orsatti to ask her second question.
No, no, thank you. It was just in regards to how the products would be distributed, how we could ensure that the drivers were doing this, and just how that money was being handled and distribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Berkel.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions too. We're not giving them money to buy products, we're giving them products, right? Okay.
Mr. Kane?
I can just clarify a little bit further, and I'm not sure if Sarah's got sound yet, and I think this is her first council meeting, so I'm trying not to stress her out too much, and baptism by fire, as they say. So through to Councillor Van Berkel, yeah, the idea is, we're not providing cash. The idea is we're going to directly provide, those products. So, once we understand better through the Uber channels what those products are, those products would be purchased, through our purchasing channels, which gives us more buying power, of course. And then we feel at this point to be distributed, either through customer service or through a facility at the town where drivers could come in, pick up what they need, and start to circulate those into the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Corcoran, anyway, even though we couldn't hear you. Next, so any other questions or comments on that? If not, we'll call the vote. All in favor? Any contrary? That's carried. Deputy Clerk Toma.
Thank you, Your Worship. Who is the seconder on that motion?
It was...
Deputy Mayor?
It was the Deputy Mayor, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next was C8, 1326 Innisfil Beach Road. Wait, did I skip one? Sorry, my fault. C5, that was Councillor Waters on the 9th line speed limit change.
Yeah, can I have seconder Ken? Thank you. Yeah, so there was a few questions still outstanding that I'd just like to get clarified about the 9th line. Residents are calling a lot, they're emailing a lot, wondering when the project is going to get done, and I've been reassured that it's going to happen before the end of the year. So for those residents who are listening, that's still what we're under the impression. However, there were just a few questions about just clarifying the crosswalk that we're going to have. We see we're going to have some speed limit reductions. The crosswalk, what type of crosswalk? And I have about 2 or 3 questions. What type of crosswalk is it going to be? Is it going to be lit above, or how are they going to designate that crosswalk?
Ms. Jenkins.
Through you, Your Worship, I will just need a moment to defer back to our team to get an answer on that one.
Okay, do you want to ask the next one, Councillor Waters?
Okay, then. The other question is the paving that's going down here. Are they going to be stripping this road right down and then putting new paving on top of it, or is this going to be a quick slick on top of there? Just the way the wording in the report is. I just want to get a better idea of what type of paving that we're going to get on the 9th line, and I guess also just an ending point and where they're going to finish. Are they only going to go to Ralph Street this fall and then finish it off the rest of it in the springtime? Because between Ralph and the 20th is really quite bad. There's drivers who drive off into the other side to avoid the bumps. And if you do hit the bump, sometimes your car actually bounces into the other lane. So it's quite dangerous. So I just want to confirm that's going to get done as soon as possible if they can't do it this fall. So they're just a few of the questions I had.
Ms. Jenkins?
Through Your Worship, going back to the first question, Ms. Cotillo has advised me that this crossing will be a Category D crossing, which is pavement markings and signage. At a future date, if once we see more development in the area, this can be converted into a crossing with lights and signals. However, at this time, this is the appropriate type of crossing for this area. Unfortunately, I missed the second part of your question, but I will let you know that the plan is right now, weather permitting, to complete 9th from 20th all the way down to the lake. We may be looking at just doing base course asphalt this year for that entire stretch. However, once we have officially awarded the contract and are able to have those discussions with the contractor and look at the weather, we will be able to provide further details on the works to be completed this year.
Okay, just to kind of going back to that, will there be flashing lights? Because you've got people, some people don't slow down as they're coming from the 20th. Flashing lights, I think, are an absolute must. To just have markings on the pavement, I think is probably very dangerous.
Ms. Jenkins?
Through your worship, at this time, we are not planning to have flashing lights. Again, they're not warranted based on the current circumstances. However, part of the reason for the speed reduction and doing a bit more of a transition where it will go from an 80 to a 60 down to a 40 is to ensure that vehicles will slow down as they approach the crossing in the school.
Okay, so you did answer the question about paving and the timelines you answered, so that's all good to hear. One final question, which is my own question. Where we're going to be having the walking path, that's just going to be marked with hash marks. It's not going to be raised, and my concern there is just that cars are just going to park there, and kids are going to have to walk on people's grass or walk around the other side. So, just out of curiosity, I assume that's probably too late to inquire about why that wasn't done.
Ms. Jenkins?
Through your worship, we did bring to the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee a few options to look at. One included the idea of doing a sidewalk. However, what we advised was that it would be extremely expensive. There's deep ditches along the 9th line currently in the vicinity of the school. And even beyond there. And urbanization of this stretch of road is planned, but for in the longer term, once the development in the area happens. So this is an interim solution to allow better active transportation modes to and from the school, as well as just within the neighborhood. In the short term, and then in the long term, we will be looking at doing urbanization through here. With respect to the parking, we do, hear those concerns, and we are working on a plan with greater enforcement and education and that sort of thing to ensure that students are able to access this active transportation route.
Thank you.
Councillor Waters, I can tell you that there's a resident that lives in the area that sits on our School Zone and Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. And I can assure you that bylaw will be called whenever there is a car parked on that walking lane.
And that resident has been doing that for years, and it hasn't changed any of the behaviors. So I can't see changing behaviors unless serious enforcement. And enforcement right now, up to date, hasn't changed people's minds. So hopefully you're right.
Thank you. My last comment will be that you can. This is your first term at council, so let me tell you, first you get complaints about a road being in such horrible shape for so long, and then as it's being repaired, you get tons of complaints about the noise and the dust and the length of the construction, and then when that's completed, you'll get complaints about how fast people will drive because it'll be a smoother surface.
And hence why we need the flashing light.
So yes, as soon as the potholes are gone, then speed bumps are requested. Sorry, I'm being a bit facetious. Councillor Fowler and then Councillor Sadi.
If I could ask, I know that the lights were not going to be installed. When I went out with the engineers and Ms. Cotillo regarding the matter, we took a walk around. There was a discussion of a post with a light flashing, designating a crosswalk in place. I'm just wondering, I understand that they're not doing the overhead lights in the whole situation like that, but I do believe there was discussion with the engineers regarding that. Can we get an update on that particular scenario, please and thank you?
Ms. Jenkins?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Fowler. As we noted, we've done, review of the warrants in this area. At this point, a flashing signal isn't warranted and was not part of the scope of work. And in order to proceed with getting the road repaved this year, as we've been hearing from the local community in the last number of years, how important it is to get this area fixed. We didn't want to delay works further with doing further investigation and having to find additional budget dollars to cover, and then come back to council to get approval to cover that cost. So if this is something that council wishes for us to consider, it's definitely something we can take back and report back on. But at this point, we're about to award the construction, and we would hate to see this project delayed further this year.
Thank
Follow
you.
up, follow up if I may.
Yeah.
All right. Considering that the contract is going to be given, what would it take to investigate after the paving is done? The basic flashing sign, just a sign by the side of the road with a post and a sign designating a crosswalk, because the one thing we have to keep in mind is we're moving the crosswalk from a place that everybody who goes to the school is accustomed to. So now we're moving it back to another street further back, slowing down traffic and whatnot. So my concern at this point in time is if we move it and people are unaware, it causes a potential hazard. So we get the paving done. What would it take to get a sign in place at that time?
So why don't we, because we are straying a little bit from the motion. The motion is simply to reduce the speed limit, right? So why don't we do that, and then we can take those comments offline. Councillor, you said you've already been talking to Carolina about it, and then if it has to come back with a notice of motion or something. But the recommendation in front of us today is simply to lower the speed limit, and I know that the community is very happy to see that. Will that work?
I'm game.
I see no more cards, so we have a mover and a seconder for this. Who was your seconder? Oh, it was Councillor Fowler, right? All those in favor? That is carried. Next is item C8. Councillor Asadi.
Okay. My seconder on this item is
Mr. Parkin. Sorry, excuse me.
Sorry to interrupt. We're coming up on 10 o'clock. Just before we start that item, perhaps you want to just pass a quick motion to extend a little bit longer.
Okay. Motion to extend proceedings. Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Waters. We're going to extend it to what, 10:30? Are we going to be able to roll through it by then? Okay, let's try. Sorry to interrupt, Councillor Asadi.
Thank you. Yes, I sort of jumped the gun on Councillor Waters for this, but he is the seconder for pulling this item. And I just wanted to, discuss the, sort of clarify that the report is to, I'm just going to, sorry, bear with me while I just pull up that item on my screen here, the report is to amend the zoning for the downtown, and just reminding viewers and residents that the images are for the built form that are shown in this document, and it's not about the entrance in and the exit in and exit out. And I just wanted to, I see is Miss Montgomery, sorry, Nordstrom. Sorry, I've got my, get my mouse here. I'm just one, yes, sorry, Nordstrom. If you could just sort of help to clarify some of the questions in regards to the safety of residents and just what's on before us on council on this one. So this is not about the entrance in and out. This is about the zoning for this, the official, sorry, I'm late at night, I'm getting tongue tied. Maybe you could just help me to explain how will the site plan process address the entrance in and out and the safety? If you could help us out with that question first.
Ms. Nordstrom?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Asadi's question. So the recommendation before you tonight is for an official plan amendment. Currently, the property is a split designation between a medium residential density designation and a commercial designation. And to properly implement the proposal, we are required to designate it fully within that mixed use or downtown commercial designation. So it's merging what's already existing in two parts on the property into one designation, which is that downtown commercial designation. It is about use and really merging the existing permissions that are there under the existing designations into one uniform designation. It is not approving entrances or circulation or traffic association or traffic. That's to be dealt with through the concurrent site plan application. And we do have a site plan application that has been submitted that includes a traffic report that has been peer reviewed. And the peer review has identified the need for further review and submission of a revised traffic report to deal with a number of issues, including entrances and circulation. So the recommendation before you tonight is for that recognizing and rectifying that split designation to allow for one downtown commercial area designation.
Thank you. Follow-up questions, Your Worship?
Yes.
Thank you. And so the further review, because I think, you know, everybody is of course concerned with safety of children and how close this is, you know, to the school. And even as Ms. Filtu had alluded to, you know, it's unfortunate the school board places a school in a downtown area on a main street, even in the planning applications, if they had looked at that before. And then unfortunately, the town and taxpayers have to come up with solutions to this. And it's very unfortunate. The school board in their comments on this said that they reviewed it and had no concerns or objections after reviewing the application. So I think addressing the safety concerns and how the entrance in and out will be handled later is key. And just a question, I believe is the Ms. Nordstrom, the consulting firm is it Tatum Engineering? And just for residents and residents to understand their expertise in traffic solutions and designs in commercial areas. I just wonder if you could just touch on that.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Asadi. The peer review firm is Tatum Engineering. They are subject matter experts in transportation engineering and are one of the pre-qualified experts to do peer reviews for the traffic reports that come in as part of our site plan review process. And to clarify, yes, the school board has been circulated on both applications. So we are dealing with two concurrent applications. And while they don't have concerns with the official plan amendment, you know, the existing designation and long-term sort of plan function of that site is to accommodate intensification, residential and commercial. They do have comments on the site plan and remain to be actively engaged in commenting on the site plan process. So I just wanted to clarify that distinction there between the school board comments with respect to the official plan amendment versus their ongoing involvement with the site plan application.
Thank you. Follow-up, Councillor?
Yes, thank you. And then, so any other considerations for your, you know, for different solutions to entrances would be with dealing with that in the application before staff. Is that correct, Ms. Nordstrom?
That's correct. The site plan control application process is when you deal with those technical review studies, including access, entrances, configuration of the site. So yes, that's being carefully reviewed through that site plan process, which is the appropriate venue to look at those fine details and ensure that it meets our engineering standards and our other standards and policies and objectives of the town.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council? Just a comment from me, and that is the Ainley report that was referenced quite a few times in Ms. Filtu's presentation was something that the school zone and not the school zone, sorry, the former last term of council, the Traffic Safety Committee engaged to deal specifically with a targeted left-hand turn signal for the entrance into Alcona Glen. And then my last comment is this site is purpose-built rental, which is something that is so sorely needed in this town. So I can support that 100 and I forget how many units it was, 137 units of purpose-built rental is something that we desperately need. Any other comments, Councillor Orsatti?
Sorry, I do, Your Worship, but I will let Councillor Fowler go first. Let other councillors speak first.
No, you finish up and then I'll go to Councillor Fowler.
Okay, thank you. Just one other thing that I was just looking at the notes. Ms. Filtu's presentation was the traffic violations, but I remember from the, again, the Traffic Safety Committee, that the traffic violations were really about, it was not about the entrances, it was about the crossing light, speeding vehicles, vehicles not stopping for the crosswalk. So just, you know, perspective on the traffic violations. And of course, you know, all of that is important. Again, I think that the development and looking at that as you know, 4 stories instead of 7 stories is certainly in a downtown commercial area. We do need housing. It is important. I had mentioned to Ms. Nordstrom my comments before that with this development, that just a recommendation or just a suggestion of trees on the side of the property that face a kindergarten classroom, just for privacy and screening. And of course, I know that they will also ensure that there is clear sight lines to all driveways. And I certainly support this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fowler?
Just something keeps coming to mind, and I understand the nature of the debate that's occurring. However, I'm looking through the file, and on page 4 with the council comments and staff reports, staff responses, one of them on page 4 states consideration for a back entrance to the property onto Webster Street. And it says a back entrance to Webster Boulevard is not being considered at this time. Now, if you look at it, they went from 29 townhomes up to 137 units plus office. Now, if they're willing to make such a grand gesture to increase their income, I think it's feasible of us as council to ask them when they come back that they alter this plan to allow for a safe space for children to walk. I don't think that's being unreasonable. If they can increase their unit size by 108 units, asking them for a small strip of space between the property and the school that allows children not to walk along a crowded space where, you know, we already have numerous problems. I don't think that's being unreasonable. I like the idea of what they're presenting. I agree with you, Your Worship, that we need the rental units. However, when it boils down to it, you know, if they're willing to increase literally 300% the amount of units available, they should be able to give us that small percentage for the betterment of the child. Just a thought.
Thank you. And I'm not arguing that that we don't need to make sure that the site plan is done safely, but Councillor Feller, there's a reason that there's not purpose-built rental being built now, and it's because it's not profitable. It's not as profitable as townhouses or stacked townhouses or single family home dwellings, and that's why it's very rare to see that kind of build. Councillor Waters, and then I'll go to Ms. Nordstrom.
I think in terms of what we're voting on is strictly a zoning amendment, and I think this should pass without any problem. I think we've acknowledged the fact that the site plan review is going to address the safety issue with going in. So I think we're going to see this rectified down the road. So I think that's important. I just want to see this residence get built because we've been waiting so long. Developers are walking away. There's 2 condominium units on Innisfil Beach Road now, which are up for sale. And so my concern is that developers are getting tired of waiting, or there's other reasons. I don't know why. I've asked planning why these developers have their developments up for sale. But we need to show that Innisfil can get these things done, and at the same time be cognizant of the requirements in terms of safety, particularly because it's next to the school. So I want to see it done for A, because of the type of housing it's offering, and B, it's got that commercial piece to it, and C, it acts to densify the core that makes commercial worthwhile being there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of residents who'll be happy to see the walk-up house taken out of the sky. Ms. Nordstrom, did you have anything to add, or no? Okay, and so we got a mover and a seconder. We'll call the vote. All in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Next is the RISE recommendation, and that's moved by Councillor Ices and seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor? That is carried. And then we have our recommendations to approve the Committee of the Whole recommendations. That's moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. Notices of motion, we've had none given. And so we'll move to announcements, please. Any announcements for the good of the community? Councillor Orsatti.
I'll keep this short and sweet. Just a lot of homes that have participated in the Halloween house decorating contest. I think this is wonderful for Innisfil, and I know I'm going to be kept very busy when I looked at the numbers for Ward 3. So I know I'm not winning the Golden Broom, Councillor Nicol, but just for entries, I think that this is really good for the community. Looking forward to seeing all the homes, and want to thank our deputy mayor who's contributed one of the prizes. Thank you.
Any other announcements from members of council? Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. To follow up from the last meeting, we have the masks that are being issued by the Legion with the poppy masks. However, due to a shortage, we have a resident, Julia Cheeseman. She is making masks, poppy masks. She is selling them, and then the entire proceeds are going to the Legion and their fund. So we have a resident who's stepping up and asking nothing in return other than we honor our soldiers. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Seeing none, I just wanted to give a big shout out to Jennifer Richardson for all of the work that she has done for the Halloweens. And I also want to give a big shout out to special thanks to our virtual Ask the Panel group, Ask a Planner group, that was held about the Orbit plan. It was really well attended, tons of questions, and although it ran really smoothly, I know it was a whole bunch of work behind the scenes. So kudos to everybody who was involved in that project. And then finally, I want to just ask if, it feels like the longest goodbye ever, but if Mr. Inwood is still on the call, he is, this is his last meeting with us. He starts a really brand new, exciting part of his career as the CAO of Seguin Township next week. And while we're going to miss you terribly, we're just so excited for this great opportunity for you and your family. And I will pass it on to Mr. Rayner.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, members of council. Yes, I just wanted to congratulate publicly Mr. Inwood for this career progression. I did everything I could to convince him that a CAO job is not what you think it is, but he's decided to move ahead with that, and we're very, very excited for him. There's no time at 10 after 10 to go through his list of accomplishments and how he's actually helped this community. But I know members of council have expressed their gratitude, and I know members of the community have also reached out over these last few weeks to express their gratitude. Jason has been the stalwart supporter in our community, always the calm voice, always professional, and exceptionally dedicated to our residents and our businesses to try to help them wherever we could. And so he leaves behind extremely large shoes to fill, or flip-flops, depending on the day, and very much looking forward to staying in touch with him and hearing about the adventures in a place that has 186 lakes. How beautiful is that? Thanks very much, Your Worship, members of council. We wish him all the best.
Thank you, Mr. Inwood. Any comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know how we could have got through my last meeting without a good hour-long debate on Innisfil Beach Park. It seems to me that my very first meeting, there was an hour-long debate on Innisfil Beach Park. So thank you for that, but clearly a different debate than it was years ago when I started. It's been, to your point, it's been a long farewell, but it's been my pleasure and my honor to work for this community and serve this community. And we've done a lot of good things, and there's a lot of great things yet to come for the residents, for the businesses, for everybody that gets the pleasure of calling Innisfil home. It's been a big part of my life over the last 6+ years, and I've taken a lot of lessons learned that I'll take with me, and I'm forever thankful for everything that council, staff, our CAO, and most importantly, our residents have done to help me progress in my career. And so I'm forever grateful. Thank you very much. And best of luck in the future. I'll be watching as closely as some of you are suggesting you'll be watching me. So thank you. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jason. And with that, we'll do our confirming bylaw. So it is moved by Councillor Sadi, seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. And all in favor? That is carried. And our adjournment, moved by Councillor Nickel, seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? Thank you very much, Council. It was a good evening, lots of debate, loved it. And thank you to all of the staff. If any of you wanted to turn your camera on so you can see how well supported we are here, and appreciate another late evening. But thank you for being here with us tonight, and have a good evening. Goodbye, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Night.